Yes. So please pose.
Hold on, wait a second. Jeff, put your arm around my shoulder and let's get a nice picture going here. We rehearsed doing this.
For those of you who don't, does everyone here know Kerry Roman? Kerry Roman, she's our attorney, she's representing us on this case, she's also represented us on several other issues. And I think everyone else, I think we all know everybody else, and board members. You won't
Is
remember
everyone
all the
missing
names.
tonight from the board?
Could I just ask everybody, at the last public hearing in this application, I get a lot of feedback from the audience that they couldn't hear what you were saying. So if you could speak up very loudly, and if you can't hear us for whatever reason, just yell at us.
Thank
We
you,
can
John.
speak up. Yep.
Who was the attorney, Dennis?
Kerry Roman.
Harry Roman from Drummond Woodson.
Okay,
I actually worked with John
okay.
a long time ago.
Just before we start, did anybody not get the Altus memo in the mail?
I just printed it.
Okay,
So-
does anybody need copies?
I have it.
Sure, you do. If anybody needs a copy, let me know.
Is it a new memo?
It was issued on July 22nd. I sent it to you.
Yes,
as a
I
map.
have it.
You have it?
Thank you. I think, no, this is for you, right? That's for you. I think there's another one.
Oh, I may have, I may have not mailed it out.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have mine?
I read it unless.
You have mine? Jim, Peter, you have the Altus and mine? You have mine. You have the Altus. You don't have the Altus. You have that one? You have mine?
I do.
I'll take it, I've read it.
You have that?
That I haven't read, this I haven't.
That's yours, right?
That's mine. You have the Altus?
Yeah, both of them.
I didn't have the technical memorandum. Or it didn't print it.
That's the two you sent to in the mail, right?
Yes.
All right. So, John, why don't you take the lead here on just to get us started, because it's been, what, 42 days since we last met?
How many?
42.
You want me to go?
No,
I thought
you
you said
wanted
John.
me to tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah, what?
So, in terms of process, these, the applicant was here a month and a half ago, presented the subdivision, not a whole lot has changed. The layout is basically the same, there's been some fine tuning of the drainage, system. The biggest hurdle, not the biggest hurdle, the biggest thing that we wanted to resolve was the wetland crossing at about 700 feet into the road, off of Nimble Hill Road. We've met out there a couple times to look at it, most recently on Wednesday of last week, we met with DES. Members of the planning board were in attendance, as was the chair of the Conservation Commission. And I think what we're gonna see tonight is a different design, rather than a 20.5-foot bridge, we're gonna see a smaller concrete structure, I believe. And then aside from that, I know there's been some comments from the public about the Coleman Drive access, noise. Those have not yet been resolved by the board, or discussed by the board, but we can certainly do that tonight. And then finally, Chris Cross came to me, and I have this in my memo, but we should discuss the configuration of the lot on the right-hand side of the entrance. I can't remember what the tax map of the lot is, and whether or not we should, the planning board should look at a lot merger with the lot next door to reconfigure that in a better way than it is now. So, is that a decent summary?
Okay.
So good evening, Mike Garapi with Garapi Planning Consultants, and I'm here with Joe Coronati from Jones Beach Engineers, and hopefully you can hear me. There's a bunch of seats right in the front row too, if you want to get a little closer, but hopefully you can hear me. I guess, Joe's here to go over some of the plan changes that we've made since the last time we saw you folks. But I guess the big thing we really want to kind of focus on tonight is the meeting we had with DES and the planning board members last Wednesday. and talking about the crossing in particular. So we have proposed a 21-foot wide arch bridge crossing in our current plan set. We understand that that may be something more than the town wants to sort of maintain and tackle over time. We had a good discussion in the field with
Well, on the,
I would do a jig or something.
Just a little time delay. Bear with us.
anybody want to dance?
They came in from Japan, they were laughing.
I just throw it.
Well, while I stop, or if anyone else has a cell phone, would you please put it on silent?
Anyway, so I forgot what we were talking about. I guess
Equity
what
Bridge,
town are we in again?
bridge.
Anyway, so I think we had a very productive site walk with the town and with the DES. And Mark West was in attendance, as well as our environmental consultant from Gove Environmental, Jim Gove. The consensus seemed to be that the crossing that would be most effective for minimizing or not causing a significant impact to the functions and values of the prime wetland was to do an open bottom box culvert that had enough height and width, so enough width to cross the stream channel and enough height for wildlife to kind of pass through it. So I know, Joe, did you pass that out?
I have.
So we do have we've got 11 by 17 copies. We may not have enough for folks in the audience, but we may have a few extra we could circulate. It's just a box culvert detail, and Joe can go through it in a little more detail than I can. But posing a 10-foot wide span with an 8-foot tall, and that would be adequate to span the channel and to allow wildlife to pass and repass under it. And we sort of put this forward just conceptually now. It's not incorporated into our plan set, but we hope to do so after hearing from you folks tonight. We've talked to Mark West, we've talked to Eric Weinrib, we've talked to John Krebs, we've consulted with the DES. The DES won't give us definitive direction, but I feel pretty confident that if the town and the Conservation Commission and Mark West, if we're all sort of behind this redesign, I think we can work with the DES to permit that crossing with this change.
Where did John go?
John left. And if you want any more specific details about the crossing, Joe will be here to answer those specifics, because I don't know all those details.
I'm just gonna ask a question. I thought the whole purpose of meet with DES was to decide whether or not the plastic culvert pipes, which was gonna have the minimum impact on the wetlands, was gonna be something we can consider. But then you walk in with a new design, so what was the purpose of the last, was it Wednesday's meeting?
Last Wednesday's meeting was to discuss the type of crossing that would be most suited for that crossing of the prime. I think there was some talk about a larger round culvert, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I
So
think.
DES wouldn't commit, Erica, Chris, and Russ were there. Russ is obviously not here tonight. DES would, and Kerry was there. And Mark West was there, but I don't know where Mark is, but he'll be here, I think. They would not commit to any design, but from their perspective, I can tell you that I don't think that they will accept a round culvert. Because I think the whole goal with the prime wetland is to disturb as little as possible. That's why there's a 20.5-foot bridge. By putting in a 10 by 8 box culvert, the stream channel will stay the same natural stream channel, and hopefully it will allow enough light to pass through so that larger mammals, which is what I think they're concerned about, will pass through. So I don't think that a plastic culvert is it's certainly a lot less maintenance, and it's a tried and true method. So that's, whether or not DES approves it is anyone's guess.
And we've also talked to Severino Trucking, Tom Severino, who's been doing this for many, many years. This is what he would recommend as well from a longevity standpoint. So this is the design we hope to incorporate into our plan changes, if in fact we're going to do that, or we're going to stick with just the arch crossing.
That's assuming that the arch crossing is approved. But let me.
Correct.
No, that's not true, Jim.
Okay.
Because you're not filing that wetland application.
We're,
That's not-
what we would like to do is we'd like to walk away tonight with hopefully a consensus that this is the direction to take the box culvert. We'll redesign our plans, we'll submit our wetland applications with the redesign. We'll go to the Conservation Commission to, again, get their support, and hopefully maybe some support from Mark as well, if he's directed to comment on our wetland permit. And then we will advance the application to DES, and with enough local support, of this prime wetland impact, and this type of crossing, we hope that the DES will approve it. But we don't guarantees that they will, but we had a pretty good meeting out there in the field. So we think we have a good chance of getting it permitted with this new design.
I'll explain to you why I brought that point up. There's two things. I can't say that I can speak to what a box culvert is that's 8 foot by 3 foot.
Not by 10 foot.
By 10 foot wide. I couldn't architecturally tell you the strength. I believe that whatever is put there needs to be a permanent bridge, not a temporary, not a passover, not a solution that is not permanent, so that the town has it for the life of the bridge, whatever that may be. The second thing was, when we first started talking about the sidewalk, I had mentioned bringing down a 6-wheeler down there and just kind of being able to follow along because it's allergic to poison ivy. And what I was told is wetlands everywhere, you're gonna get stuck everywhere. Then I started to ask some of the guys that I know in the paving field, and what are you doing? What is the plan? And maybe this isn't the time to do it, but we're looking at the bridge, I'm looking at longevity, and making sure that once it's put in, the town doesn't get stuck with a very large bill. Now you take the next step and you're putting a road in to an area that may not be as stable as other areas. So does that require a study to know that the road design that you're proposing, $2 to $5 million for that road, is going to be there like any other road that we as a town would put in for development? You add an extra complexity only because the topography of the land that you're on.
So yes, the study is warranted and it's ongoing. I mean, so I guess, and John can speak to it as well. I mean, Eric Weinrib from Altus Engineering is your consulting engineer to do peer review of Joe's work to make sure the road is built to town standards. And we have alteration of terrain through DES who will be reviewing all our drainage as well. So are there some unsuitable soils there that need to be stripped away and gravel's brought in? Sure, and that happens in most road construction efforts. Yeah, you've got checks and balances to make sure that the road that's being built is to your standards. Absolutely. And this box culvert design is intended to be permanent, to be
Long-term.
longer term, easier to maintain, less costly to maintain than the aluminum arch. That's the reason why we're here with this.
And more importantly, I think to Dennis's point, that if and when this fails in 100 years, the impact of replacing this is gonna be a lot lower than replacing a 20.5-foot bridge. And certainly we hope this lasts longer than 100 years, but, the cost to the town would be significantly less, and hopefully the environmental cost this is the only wetland crossing on this road. There's a couple of minor wetland impacts, I think,
A couple of,
because of grading, I believe, Joe, right?
Yes.
But there's no other wetland impact. So because you guys don't do a lot of subdivisions, you do a lot of site plans. The most recent subdivision I think you did was next door. The town engineer from Altus or one of their, Eric Weiner or one of their field engineers will be there during construction. And as Mike said, that road can't be built until all the unsuitable material is pulled out of the right of way. So, in fact, while there are a lot of topographic lines on this plan, it's actually a flat site.
fairly flat.
The road, in fact, the road is, I would say, is very flat. The lots themselves have some topography, but the road itself is quite flat.
So, I guess I can make a general announcement, I know Mark West is here, thank you for making it tonight, Mark. Can I ask you if you hear, I wasn't sure if there was gonna be any wetlands issues, and that's what we're sort of like talking about right now, and I know you have to leave. I know you have to-
Wetlands are so popular.
Yeah, boy. But I know you have to leave early, you can't stay here for the whole meeting, so, am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so, if there are any wetlands issues considering, especially this bridge, this is new to me, I haven't seen this proposal up until now. So if there are any wetland questions, while we have Mark here, please do ask, okay, because he's gonna leave at, I think, around 6:45.
Does Mark have this?
Mark, do you have a copy of this?
Nope.
We got it's a typical open bottom.
So, if I can just speak briefly, after the sidewalk, and the fact that we've been talking about this since November or December, with the prime wetlands and the crossing and everything, I talked to Eric and said, we should discuss some parameters of what the alternative is to the bridge. And Eric wrote some stuff down, sent it to John, and this is the alternative that fits into those parameters. And the open bottom is actually better than the closed bottom, because then you're not dealing with potentially things getting washed out. And there is a fair amount of work for the footings on either side, and there'll be a lot of pumping and all that. But at least this is an alternative that they can potentially run by the DES also while they're going through the process with the town and get their feedback. And it seems like a feasible alternative.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board at this particular time about this particular issue? All right, that being the case, I'll open up to the public, if anyone would like to say something about the bridge or the wetlands or whatever at this particular time. Now would be the time to speak.
No question.
Yes, sir. Just for a record, so the recorder doesn't know everyone's name, and I don't either, just state your name, so she can get it in the minutes.
My name is Robert Burns, I live at 95 Nickel Hill Road. My question was about the box culvert. I believe you said it's 10 foot wide?
Correct.
So this is a one lane bridge?
Oh, it's
And there'd be a stop sign?
It's a 10-foot span.
The span is 10 feet
Oh,
wide.
the span is
It's
10
going the
feet.
other way.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
so
so
the span
it's-
is 10 feet wide, the height is 8 feet. I gave my plan away, but it's,
The width is still 2 lanes or?
oh, God, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just took the 2 dimensions, sounds like a one-way bridge.
Yeah, no,
Fair
it's,
There's one way, you can only go out.
in
Well,
fact, well, in fact,
stop sign on either side.
In fact, one of the, I don't know how this is going to be addressed, but one of the concerns that Jane Hislop, the chairperson of the Conservation Commission, raised was salting of the road in such close proximity to that prime wetland. So one of the things we talked about is a way to cut that off, maybe extend the box a little bit further on either side, so the side slopes were a little bit, more gentle and they had more vegetation to absorb that roadside. There may be another way to do it, I don't know, but, so, Joe, how wide is that box? Approximately.
Yeah, typically the box culverts are 40 feet. They come in 8-foot sections, and that's the math that works out, that allows room for.
Joe, 8 foot 40 is not divisible by 8, or is it 5?
It is.
You're right, Joe.
Boy, luckily, we did it a couple times. Then that provides room
Testing
for
us.
curbing, we need guardrails, shoulders, and 32 is just too narrow.
Is it unheard of to go another 8 feet to increase the side slope, or is that, really only to
That is
catch
sort of
both,
unheard
so.
of. Yeah, 'cause we'd have to, I mean, you could do it, but that widens the impact.
The intent, okay,
Uh,
yep.
And the edge of the roads will be retaining walls, you know, to keep the impact as narrow as possible. So with that, actually, your road's only 22 feet wide, pavement. So with a 40-foot box culvert, you know, you have now 9 feet outside the edge of pavement, which should be
I know
enough room
you
to
haven't
hold the
designed it.
snow.
And I know you don't know what the side slopes are, but what would you design then, 3-to-1?
Well, we have them as vertical retaining walls.
Well, then, so from the retaining wall to the end of the box, what's that?
Those are flush. Like the retaining walls will run parallel with the center line of the road. And as we go past the wetland, that's the narrowest way to impact the wetland.
Right, so we have the retaining wall, the box is sticking out 9 feet. What's in
It
that?
doesn't, no, the retaining wall and the box culverts are flush.
Okay, and then, so so between the retaining wall and the curb, what's there, a grass panel?
Yes,
Okay,
and the guardrail, the curbing, the
Yeah.
shoulder, so that's quite a bit more than,
snow's gonna fly.
right. You got 9 feet, plus you got the guardrail to hold it in. If that's a concern, you can actually tip the shoulders into the road to try to let any snow melt go back
Go
into the
back into the
pavement
road.
to
And then-
reduce the salt into
Yep.
the wetlands.
Mr.
Okay.
Britt, Mr. Britt, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, is there any other questions? Mike?
I'm a visual person, is there any place we could go and see one in operation?
Yes, but I gotta think about where.
If you don't have an answer tonight, that's fine, we give us an answer to John and.
Yeah.
I think the Flagstone Brook Bridge is a box culvert bridge like we're talking about here, but it doesn't have I don't think it has
The top, there's 1,000.
I don't think it has the vertical walls there, am I correct, going all the way to tie into the shoulders?
Which road is that?
It's right on Nimble Hill Road.
Oh,
It is. It is a box.
Yeah, it's a box, it's right there at the Flagstone Brook, it's right there, but it was put in years and years ago.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it has any vertical, I think I heard you say there's gonna be a vertical wall on the shoulder, is that correct?
yes.
No, a vertical shoulder a vertical wall at the box, not at the shoulder.
Right.
At the box, correct, at the exterior of the box,
Yeah.
and the box is gonna be,
40 feet long,
yeah,
and then about a 9-foot grass panel to the curb. Maybe guardrail?
Definitely guarded.
Definitely guardrail, and then curb.
so what do you do when you get beyond, and you got sloping down into the wetlands?
You don't, it's gonna be a vertical wall.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
say, and that's why I think people are having a hard time understanding what that looks like.
Right.
We can get, we'll just get John some examples, maybe some photographs
Yeah.
of some, local
Yeah, the
examples.
one down here is not a good example, I don't think, but that is a box culvert.
Yeah, that's not a good example, right? This is a good second time.
Any other questions? So, John, what I'm a little bit puzzled by, is what was the purpose then for the meeting with DES? And I thought the outcome of that was gonna determine what kind of bridge we're gonna put in. I know you're looking for something from us, so I'm gonna say to you, I don't know what DES is saying, and I'm not willing to give you, what to do, because no matter what we do, they're gonna do the opposite probably.
Well,
Mike, let me address that.
let John,
The DES would, and Mark and Eric and Chris can speak to this, DES and Carrie, DES will not tell us what they will accept. They will only review and evaluate what is submitted by them. The indication that we got from them was that if there was a box culvert that was wide enough and tall enough to allow light through it and to allow the stream and some size of the stream to allow mammals to go through, they would, I think, entertain it.
And they wanted support from.
But they want support from conservation and the planning board. Without that support, I don't think this is gonna go anywhere, and I think we'll end up with that bridge or maybe something bigger. We don't know. But I think it's, Mark, is that a reasonable summary?
Like like I said, this is a feasible alternative that I think they can consider. It would be nice if they're moving forward with a design to inform the DES, this is what we're gonna be filing, and get some sort of, if they say there's no way we're gonna permit it, it would be nice to know that
Right.
before they spend all the effort designing and filing it.
So would it be
But I know the DES, it depends on this prime wetland reclassification or remapping and all this stuff has gotten rather complicated, and I have sent everything to the DES that I prepared over the years, and I think we know exactly where the prime wetland is, and I think they should give some sort of feedback on this concept of an open bottom box that's big enough to meet the other criteria. Is it possible they could consider there will be some loss of wildlife habitat? There's gonna be loss of wildlife habitat even if you build a bridge. So I think you can at least get it in front of them and get some feedback. And they may ask for mitigation, they will ask for some sort of mitigation, and maybe that's something that'll be, that they come back with, that we think it might be feasible, but it needs mitigation, and then they have to design a mitigation or do a payment or something that they'll accept.
Yeah, we already know we're paying into the ARM fund. We're gonna be paying more with this design. We're gonna be paying more into the ARM fund with this design than with the wider span, because we're gonna have more impact to the prime. We understand that, but this was kind of all driven by the planning boards sort of directing us to look at alternatives. So that's why we had that meeting on Wednesday, that's why we're proposing this here. We're more than comfortable proceeding with what we've already designed, but we know that the town doesn't necessarily want that. So that's why we would love to have your feedback tonight.
What is the life expectancy of this bridge?
I think you're gonna get an industry standard that's gonna say 50 years for everything, but 75, I guess. But, in talking with Tom Severino, he says these last, again, forever is
They
the
do
word
last,
you use.
they
but-
do last a long, long time. I know
But,
that.
no one's gonna say, no one's gonna guarantee that product
I
forever.
assume it's reinforced concrete?
Yes, precast reinforced concrete.
All right, I assume the reinforcement is steel?
Yes.
All right, is there other materials that are available, non-corrosive?
Like oxy-coated steel
Yeah,
or,
yeah. Just to help, I know it does extend the life of it quite a lot.
right, there can definitely be notes added to that effect. The shop drawings reviewed prior to the construction of the bridge, which is normally how it's handled from the real detail happens at the shop drawing period of time, which is prior to construction. But and there are certain things you can do to extend it. There's membranes you can put on the top to try to prevent salt
Penetration.
impregnation into the steel from the top. There's different things you can add to the plan. We always work with Mitchie Corp. They're a local, designer of concrete products, and they're happy to work with.
Is this gonna be, anybody needs, is it poured, you're gonna be pouring in place, or is it pre-stressed?
Precast. It's precast, not pre-stressed.
Not
but-
pre-stressed?
No, there's no tension. It's not like a suspension bridge or anything. So that basically comes in 8-foot sections, and they put the footings in first. The footings can be, they have to be 4 feet below grade. So there's some excavation required for the footings. And then once the footings are in, backfilled, the top part goes in very fast. It comes in, shows up on flatbeds, and a crane or a giant excavator basically can pick them and set them.
Okay.
So it does go in fast. And that, well, yeah,
Good.
that's all.
All right, so John, has Altus Engineering look at this all?
We got this drawing tonight.
Done. All
Yeah,
right.
we just, and I asked them to bring something just so they could show it to you, but this meeting happened on Wednesday of last week. Eric Weiner was well aware of it. And these are pretty common, they happen in a lot of subdivisions, so it's a pretty common structure.
I I know structure, I'm aware of it, I know they last a long, long time. I also know if you don't get it right, they can last a short, short time.
Sure.
I just wanna make sure we just get it right, and
Yep.
that's what I'm saying, they're asking us to move in that direction. I guess I'm okay with moving in that direction, cause I liked it better than the aluminum product. I think the aluminum product has there's some issues with it in my mind.
Right.
So I think you are moving in the correct direction, and I think, if we ask more questions, and if we had our engineering experts here, if I say Altus Engineering, I'd like to have their opinion on that, because at this particular point, what we're talking about here, and I think we have several engineers here, but none of us are bridge engineers that I'm aware of. Probably Peter's the closest one, but I haven't heard anything from him yet, but that's the kind of thing that I would wanna make sure that we don't give the false indication to go out there and we're going down the wrong path. Okay, and you gotta understand, we haven't seen anything until just now.
Understood.
But I think you are going in the correct direction, from my gut experience in dealing with engineering projects during my career. Peter, do you have anything to add to this? I know you've done some stuff.
What, I know this, box culvert is, off the rack stuff.
Yep.
And, as they say, you can go with the epoxy coated steel and the membrane over the top to diminish the amount of salt that gets into steel. Beyond that, you can do a precast bridge, or instead of an aluminum culvert, you could do the precast concrete for that. So, I mean, this is not rocket science,
No, it's not.
fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, and if we did go, if the DES required us to do something wider, I think I would come back with a precast concrete arch bridge instead of the aluminum based on
With the
your
open
concerns.
box.
Right.
Okay.
And the reason we picked this width was that the width of bridges as far as the Wetlands Bureau looks at them is based on a factor of the stream width. And then there's a factor for how many acres are above your crossing. They rate them into tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3. So we looked at this, and this is more than 1.5 times the width of the stream, being the 10-foot width, and that's how we
So,
came up with the width.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here a little bit. Chris, is there anyone else who has anything else to say about this at this
The
point?
only other thing I wanted to say is that, and we discussed this at the meeting with DES, is that if you look at the plan, Mike, you can't see your plan from here, but the stream does bend a little bit, the prime mountain does bend a little bit in that location. So I think there was, one of the reasons that we wanted a slightly wider box was so that the stream didn't need to be straightened. And I think this accomplishes that, but I'm not positive. So you can run this box straight and the stream will meander underneath it the way it does today, pretty
Right.
closely.
It gives us, the stream's probably, I'd say, I think a bunch of you have walked through it at this point a couple times now. Maybe it's 5 feet wide, maybe it's 6 feet. This gives us a little leeway for the curve in the stream
Okay.
as it enters.
So, I don't see anybody around here. So, I will now say, I think we're going in the right direction, but I'm gonna put a caveat in there, and that is, as after someone has an opportunity to look at the details of what you're gonna be doing. This looks like it's just a off-the-shelf.
That's exactly what it is.
And it's dated 2/25/21. But I would like for the record to show, this is exhibit 1, sheet 1 of 1, and at the bottom it says, job project 17048.2. I just wanna get for the record, when we get new information that comes in, and we're seeing it for the first time, this is the first time we see it, in case things start going, well, he said, she said, and it starts going amok, if you know what I mean. So I wanna make sure that we get that on the record, this is the first time we see it, not the date that's on there.
Sure.
Right. So I think we're going in the right direction, John. You seem to think so as well?
No, I do, I mean, I think it's a pretty, this is a proven way to cross streams.
I love box culverts.
Yeah, I think it's superior than a bridge. So
Well, actually, I
yeah.
love my wife, I don't love box culverts.
I have a question for Mark West. The 40-foot length of the culvert, do you think there's gonna be daylight enough for the animals to be encouraged to cross through this?
It's, the whole idea of the wildlife will be impacted, but something this size lets most wildlife move through it. It's gonna shade it, it's gonna impact, you know, have some impact, but, I don't think deer like going in those things myself. So, I mean, you can't really design it. I remember years ago with Dory Wigan, they wanted something to handle a moose. We used to have moose, further south. And, you know, the issue is the hydraulic connectivity and minimizing impact. And you raise the issue of, concrete arch span. I don't know how big those are. I don't know if they're more expensive or less expensive. It could be, you know, better to have a little bigger span and still have the concrete that the planning board needs. But I don't know what size they come in, but this is big enough for the stream, but because it's a prime wetland, they still may, you know, take a closer look at it.
Well, the concrete arch would be the same size as the aluminum arch, right? Which is
Correct.
20-foot
20
span?
foot. Yep.
Anyone else?
One other question, Mark Twain, Coleman Drive. Has anybody been down in the last, 20 days and down in that area with all the monsoon rain we've had and see exactly how wide that stream may be now?
Yes, we actually were there on Wednesday of last week, right after a lot of the rains that occurred last week. And it was flowing, but it wasn't overbanked. There was no, you know, wasn't utilizing the floodplain areas on either side of it. So I was actually surprised it wasn't flowing a little bit more.
Have you been down there, Mike? It's kind of like a defined channel, I'd say it's
I know, I've
4
seen it.
feet wide, not very deep, I mean.
No, well, my concern is that, the flood we had in 2006, which I had water in my basement, my neighbors have canoe in my backyard, is something we're concerned about here. So if we're gonna have water flowing out of here, it's gonna have to flow. So I figure this storm now is about 2 storms behind that one in length and depth of water. And my concern is, we're gonna be able to handle that water flow in the future, because everybody's saying it's gonna get worse. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying people are saying to me. So how do we know if that stream is not gonna get wider and flesh out on us? That you see in Europe, it's happening in Europe too, so.
So the culvert at Coleman Drive is 24 or 30?
36 at
36?
Coleman. Then it's a 36-inch culvert at Coleman Drive,
Right.
coming across right through here. But then right downstream of our box culvert
Yeah.
/ bridge, there's a 30-inch culvert across an old existing driveway.
Which
That
is,
crosses that
I
well.
think that's off the Young's property, I'm not sure.
Yes,
Is that
yeah.
where that is? Is that cleared out down there?
Yeah, it's multi years, it's been there forever.
Okay, because I've been here 19 years and nobody's cleaning it. The only one cleaning mine was the fire department after I haven't got on there and wash it out, but that's the problem we're having. We've got to maintain these things after they're built.
Sure.
That's not
Right.
concerned as a town.
Our-
Saying that.
Our culvert, you know, whatever our box culvert /
Yeah.
bridge will be bigger than what's upstream and downstream, so we
Right.
won't see the constriction.
But I just had that on the record that somebody's seen that area in this last rain we've had, so they'll know
Yes.
what we're dealing with.
Yeah, there were photographs taken as well. I know the DES took some photos, I did as well. I can
Thank
get
you,
those
Bill.
to John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'm gonna ask a couple other questions concerning the bridge. On drawing C7, as again, look at the original drawing you gave us, it looks like you show the utilities going on top of the bridge, or is that under the bridge? But it's definitely within the confines of the bridge, you know what I mean? It actually curves in from outside on the setback to under the pavement. So could you explain to me the utility, this gas and electric?
Yes, there's, on top of the bridge, there's gonna be a certain depth of soil,
Yeah.
and the electric and gas would run on top of the bridge below the pavement.
All right, so you have freezing from both sides, right? And how's the water line gonna hold up to that? Well, you have.
We have no water line through there. Our water line comes in from Coleman,
Okay,
goes down Downing,
okay,
and the only utilities coming in across that bridge are the gas and electric.
yeah, so if we have to change
we would still try to keep the gas and electric above the bridge deck, below the pavement. And it may, this 8x10 is not, entirely determined. I think the width would be determined, but the height, maybe it ends up being 7 feet, maybe, but we wanna have soil above the,
Concrete.
yeah, above the concrete in an adequate depth to actually have the utilities go through that soil,
All right.
rather than under the footings or around the outside.
I was kind of wondering I couldn't quite make out what you were doing, I thought, it looked like it was going above the slab, or above the bridge structure, so, okay,
That's correct.
all right. Is there gas?
Dennis, I just wanted to interrupt, Mark has got to go, is there anything else that you wanna?
Well, the reason why I asked that question was, because I thought they were gonna go down along into the prime wetlands to dig, to put those, I wasn't sure, that's the reason why I brought that up now, because I know Mark was leaving. But you answered the question, you went above, you're going above the prime wetlands, I got it, so you're spanning it, got it. All right. Anyone else for, yes?
Yeah, Derek Wilson, Coleman Drive, just for Mark over here. When you go to places that are reservoirs for water, there's low salt areas. Is this like a place that might be a low salt area, or maybe there's some kind of pavement that you don't have to salt as much?
That's really up to the town. There was a whole discussion that Jane had on the sidewalk.
Jane's been beating this drum for a while. It's something that, I think the Conservation Commission should probably talk to the Board of Selectmen and the road agent or the Highway Department about. I'm sure there's other areas in town where, applying the same amount of salt is not a good thing. This is clearly one of them. I'm sure there's 20 more. I don't know if you guys calibrate your salt spreaders. I don't know how it works in Newington, but a lot of towns have low, guys laughing. A lot of towns do have low salt areas, but in terms of pavement, there's nothing to do. I mean, the only thing that would be good is, the more sun, the better.
If it's more coarse, John, something like that, would that make sense?
We wouldn't allow it. The top course of pavement has gotta be a fine aggregate, otherwise it'll fall apart. So, no, I mean, like I said, the only thing that would help is the orientation of the sun on the road in the winter. And, one of the things that Eric Weinberg, Altus Engineering, our engineer requires is tree cutting, right away to right away. So, this is something we may actually look at, is maybe overcutting this a little bit, just so sun hits that bridge. If we do decide that, or if the town is agreeable to lowering the salt usage, just so sun hits it, but that's about it.
And you gotta remember that watershed includes the school parking lot, and the whole lot, and the thing about salt is
All of it's part of the town.
yeah, once it gets into the water, it just moves, but it is going into salt water eventually. And there's not trout or any, the fisheries would be a bigger concern, but it's a tough issue in a lot of towns, but there's towns that do it.
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah.
All right, anything else? Any other questions for Mark before he leaves?
Sorry I had to leave early.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye, Mark.
All right,
So if there's no more bridge/culvert discussion, I think to close this issue, we'll go ahead and start looking at a design as it applies to our site, and we'll get that to John and to Eric Weinreb through John, and we'll start that review process. Before we make a formal submission to DES, we'll get that process.
why don't you get some photos, 'cause I think some people still don't have it clear in their mind, get some
Sure.
photos to
Yeah.
John Krebs.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
we can get those for anybody who's asking for them.
Yep.
And maybe we can pass them out to the board members and anyone else who needs it as a side document, am I correct, John? Can we do that? All right.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so let's do that. I think I know what you're doing, I understand it. So, let's go ahead and move on to some other things that you need to bring up since we last talked. And I guess it was 6 weeks ago, so.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, and I think that was by design. We didn't want to come back until we had, we were ready to come back with revised plans, which Jones and Beach has done and submitted, and we do have some review comments from Altus. John, I don't know, if you sent any, we didn't see any from you.
I emailed you Altus's comments.
Yes, but we didn't see any from you, so I don't know if you did any.
Oh, I sure did.
Hmm.
I thought I emailed you, but I'll give you a hard copy.
Mr. Chairman, we're just seeing his comments just tonight, so
Well,
For the
expect
record.
an answer from you like you expected one from us.
well, normally we get one from John.
Concerning the
I
bridge.
know.
Would,
So,
would it be better if we saw you again in October to review that?
Maybe, yes. So we do know, I don't know if it's worth going through, I guess all the comments, I don't think we need to go through line by line.
I don't wanna do that with Eric not here.
Yeah, sure.
I thought he was gonna be here, but I don't wanna do that with him not here.
So I guess that, what may make sense is that if there are specific questions, or I know Joe has maybe a couple of questions, maybe we get hit on those. Because we know obviously we're gonna have to incorporate some sort of a new design for the crossing into our plans, address John's comments, Alta's comments of the second round of comments, and come back again with a revised plan set. Hopefully for end of August, we'll kind of continue maybe on a monthly cycle, and with the goal of maybe being, into local.
Well, one of the biggest things I'd like to do right up front is to make sure, is to really get comments from the public in general. 'Cause I wanna make sure that anything that they may have, a lot of them live there.
Sure.
We get captured early on. That way there's not a surprise at the end. And if you're holding it to the end, you're making a mistake. I'm talking to the audience out there. If you have something to say, now's the time to do it. So if you would, please do step forward and say something, if you like or dislike, or if you still want to just get more questions. It's really, this public hearing is about the public having a right to be heard. So that's why I wanna make sure, all of you can get to speak. So I'll just shut up at this point, if anyone would like to say something. Okay. If you change your mind, you can just raise your hand and I'll try to get your attention.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
It would be nice if they had those, some of those drawings down here, so the people here can see what they got up there.
I'm bringing this right to you, right now. This is for you.
It's difficult for us.
It's like a large check.
Well, Mike, I mean,
I didn't have
he
my-
needs a subdivision.
Oh, the
I
subject.
didn't have my block,
You got this?
I got that, I saw
Yeah,
that.
what do you need?
Look at that, that's up there, but in the next meeting, you might put another tripod here.
Sure,
with it,
yeah, we can do
so
that.
We can see what you're talking about.
Yep.
So one of the things I would like to say is, all of our public hearings, as with all towns, all those records, all the things they apply to the board, give to the board, just as available in town hall. You can take them, come into a room, spread them all out, look at them, do all of that. Look at our ordinances, look at the state RSA's, here's our ordinances right here. Take a look at all of it. If there's something that you wanna take a look at, I think they take our ordinances and our regulations, and they go over one by one to satisfy them, or they're supposed to. That's what we're here, really making sure that happens. So, it's not just coming here tonight and then looking at, it's taking the time, if you're interested in the project, and pulling open the large set of drawings. Don't look at these, they're too hard to read. I'm gonna go blind trying to read it. If I did, you have large sets like they have there that you can come in and take a look at it, and if it doesn't make sense, you ask those questions. I just wanna make sure everyone is aware that is available. Don't feel intimidated by it. If you don't understand a drawing, that's where you come in and ask. So we're here to help everybody, including the applicant.
If I may, Dennis, follow up on that. You did that with the bridge, over here, and you had them posted in here. Maybe we had something like that posted just in the hallway, so they come in and look at it and get a better visual, because some people ask me questions, and I don't have the answers for them, because I'm not really looking at it as much as I should be too, so.
Like these are in a neighborhood of like 50 sheets.
I'm talking about what they got right there.
Oh, that's different, yeah.
Mike, just so you know, just so everybody knows, I leave this plan set just like this, which is 37 pages, I believe, or 40 pages long. I leave this right behind the glass where Eleanor or Sue lives,
Okay.
but I can certainly leave it at the table out front, so you don't need, you can just walk right into the town hall. and
Well, I
review it.
thought you had locked in your office, John.
No,
I couldn't find it one day, and I didn't know where you
No,
had it.
it's literally, it's literally sitting right on top of the tax map, but I'm more than happy to leave it out on the
That's
table.
fine. Just so somebody can walk in and take a look at it.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Quick question if I could. Bob Burns, mental health. About 100 feet in, I guess it is, off of Nimble Hill, that rock face, you said you're gonna make it a vertical, if you will. You know what I'm talking about?
There's.
We coming off of Nimble, you're gonna cut the rock and have it come down sharply. How far, the roadway, the actual paved roadway, how far does that end before your rock slope begins? Is the asphalt, the curbing going right up to the rock and then it's going vertical, or is it going, and then there's a 4-foot buffer, and then it goes up, or what is the?
Yeah, I don't know the exact distance from center line to that rock that's there. It may be a ledge face, but we actually dug a test pit right in the center line, and right against that ledge / rock, and we went straight down, and we didn't hit refusal, so it may be relatively easy face to leave, because you'd think that there'd be shallow against the ledge right there in the center line of the road, but we hit pretty good, gravel material there. It was a surprise to us, but.
But my question is horizontal asphalt to when you're going vertical and rock? Is there enough room for a sidewalk? Is there 10 feet there? Is there 2 feet there?
There's no room for, well, there's certainly room for a sidewalk, so in quick numbers, Joe, the right of way, the road right of way is 50 feet.
Right.
So I think there's a stake up there at the center line, and then 25 feet over would be the edge of the right of way, obviously. The road is 22 feet wide, so I don't know how to do math, what are we left with, 28 feet, right? So plus or minus, 12 or 14 feet on either side of the curb to that ledge face.
Okay.
So.
So there's enough room for pushing snow
Oh,
back?
God,
and-
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, you're not pushing up against the face?
No. So, I mean, yeah, the road is, there's at least 12 or 14 feet, 12 feet on either side, yep.
Excellent.
Now, that's sloping up, correct, Mike?
It's sloping up. It's sloping up on the left, sloping down the right.
All right.
Correct.
Well, relatively flat on the right, but.
Right.
If
Yeah, we
anything,
actually-
it's down.
That section's a variable width right away. We actually have it designed with a 2-to-1 slope, not with the vertical. If the vertical is a possibility, we'll actually have more space for snow.
So, Joe, I mean, I do have a scale, but, so where Bob is talking about, it's at about station, I'd say, what, 1 plus 75, right?
Yes.
So from there to the edge of the right of way, I do have a scale.
From the edge of the pavement to the right of way, we have 30 feet. We got plenty of space.
For those of you who look at drawing P1,
Right.
Now that ledge up.
All I was asking is there nothing for snow back there? And that's all, I didn't know if there was nothing.
okay, so I think the question was, is there ledge right up the pavement, and is it gonna drip from the ledge onto the pavement, and is there gonna be a place to put snow? There's a drainage swale right alongside the road, right, Joe?
There's not. This is the section through, well, that's one of the things we very much like to discuss tonight, but is, the whole road is curved. So there's no drainage swale anywhere on
The
the.
entire road's gonna be curved? I thought you were just doing sections of it.
No, we have the entire road curved except for the cul-de-sac itself. We preferred not to have ditches and swales, and that's one of the things we do need resolved. Eric brings that up in his recent memo, and
Just to one of the comments that I made, Chris brought it up, I think at the last meeting, was, how, and this is, I don't know when we're gonna talk about this, but how tax map 12, lots 5 and 6 are developed. But Chris talked about, and I think it was a good point, if the high point of the road at about, 700 feet is the top of the bridge, why not have open drainage from there out to Nimble Hill Road? And if you needed a small detention pond, and the buildings on lots 5 and 6 are coming down, why not put detention out there, a small detention pond?
well, you're gonna have, with the curbing and no ditch, we barely have the room to grade a 2-to-1. The town requires a 4-to-1. So we would have a If we had a ditch, we'd have a ditch, and then we'd have a retaining wall to grade in that right of way.
What about super elevating the road to the right side then, and having a ditch, open ditch on the right?
Well, Altus doesn't like the super elevation we have on the cul-de-sac, so I doubt he's gonna like the super elevation at the entrance.
Okay.
John, what drawing you on?
So,
I'm not in any comment, I'm just, I was looking at OV one, just for reference, but.
and then to keep going with it though, the curbing at the entrance between the Nimble Hill and the start of our retaining walls and our crossing, wetland crossing and prime wetland area, we think that should all be curbed to keep the grading impact and all those things we just talked about. Then we have the bridge section with the retaining walls that needs to be curbed. Once we get beyond that, you could conceivably go to ditches, but once again, the road is in a fill, and we have 3 little wetland impacts along this section of road around Station 1100 and 1000, 10,000, 1,000, I mean, 10+00. We have 3 wetland impacts, so if we had ditches in there, we'd have much greater wetland impacts. And so then once you get past that station, you're past 11, you're starting to get closer to the cul-de-sac.
The other thing we wanted to do as well is minimize, I mean, if you were out there on the site, you saw a lot of mature trees. Some of them are obviously gonna get cut down for the road to be built, but if we have to do, side slopes, we're gonna be having a much wider swath of trees cut. And our intent is to try to, minimize the mature tree cutting to the extent that we can.
John, why is Eric not here tonight?
He had a personal conflict.
And if it's productive, I know we talked about this at maybe the last meeting. I don't know if you talked to, I'm not talking loud enough?
No.
Yeah,
Speak up.
if it may be productive to,
People back there, if you're talking, the other people sitting next to you can't hear us up here, it's already bad enough, so please keep it down to a low roar, if you would, please, thank you.
I mean, if it's productive to have a workshop meeting on this, we can certainly do that. We can be here with Eric and we can get more into the details about closed drainage versus open drainage and the issues that either or may present. So we're happy to do that at maybe even, I don't know if you have a meeting in 2 weeks, we can jump into a workshop then or whenever it might be convenient.
All right.
But that is a threshold issue for us, because we've designed the entire road with closed drainage primarily.
Well, what I'm getting from you is that you're gonna have a very difficult time building this road with open drainage.
Well, in the areas that we.
Open drainage, for everyone, if you don't understand, is storm drains on the side of the road. Closed drainage is culvert pipes, catch basins, upkeep, cleaning it clean over years. So I just wanna let you know what the difference is in those two.
In the areas that we need closed drainage for minimizing impacts to wetlands, in other areas, we'd ask for a waiver to your standard, to the extent that there is one. I know your preference, I believe, historically has been open drainage. So, but I think this site in particular lends itself very well to a closed drainage system. And that's why I think it would be helpful to have Eric here when we're talking about things like this.
That's why I'm saying that I think we need to move on
Yep.
to other things.
Yep.
The one thing I will say about the closed drainage system, we don't have the vacuum trucks, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have any of that to clean these things out with. So there's gonna be an impact on the town to maintain this over time. I'm not sure how that's gonna impact the project,
Sure.
if you understand, because we don't have the trucks to do it, we don't have the things to, that's why we go with open drainage. You're not proposing something that we don't have. And I'm kinda looking at that and going, all right, how do we get around this dilemma? So,
Sure.
So open drainage would have like retention ponds,
Name?
correct?
yeah, what's your name, sir?
Dave Russell,
Okay, thank you.
Maple Hill Road.
What
So
was that? What-
open drainage would include retention ponds possibly?
Yeah,
It's the same thing, just the way they're conveying the water would be different.
Yeah.
I mean, Nimble Hill is just open swales on the side of the road.
Right.
Instead of open swales, they'd have a curb, catch basin, a pipe, two, the same, probably probably to the same structure, a detention pond or a bio
So
retention
that
pond.
would play in hand with the wetlands, correct?
Well, what they're saying is the problem with, and this is, it's a problem, it's becoming a big problem in the state that, because wetland protections are so strictly enforced, years ago, you would just slope off the side of the road, have a swale, and you'd fill a wetland in the process. Now, by putting a curb in, we can keep the road at, 22 feet wide, a lot narrower. Again, if you have to have a curb, a grass panel, then a swale, now you're talking about maybe 40 feet, and the wetland impacts would be significant, because you gotta grade way beyond the edge of the pavement. So that's why they do what they're doing, because they need a narrower road to impact fewer to reduce the wetland impacts. Yeah.
We had, if I remember, Mr. Chairman, we had the same problem in Coleman Drive, and we did one covered drain on the Manchester side, from Skip Cole's house all the way down to the culvert. And then we have the ditch sides on my side and their side as well. And it's handled all very well, but we're not sure when it's gonna need to be cleaned, and who does it? Like Dennis says, we don't have the equipment to do that in this town.
What?
I was just gonna add, not a lot of towns have their own catch basin cleaning equipment. It's usually something that gets rented once a year, but I mean, so I assume there's other catch basins in town elsewhere. I don't know if they're on a yearly cleaning schedule, but very few cities have their own, vacuum trucks, or towns, I should say.
Right. So I would recommend that we resolve this with Altus Engineering, when they're present, 'cause otherwise we're not gonna get this, I don't think we're gonna get this resolved tonight.
Sure, no, I agree.
And everything that we've always looked at, we try to keep open drainage as the theme, you know what I mean? I understand why you're doing it here, because of the prime wetlands, and you're trying to keep the road runoff from going into that prime wetland. I get it, so, all right.
Yeah, like I said, we have wetland impacts up to station 1100, and then the cul-de-sac, we go back to open drainage. We could potentially look at that sooner, but that's at station roughly 1850.
All right,
So when we get rid of the curbing. So we'd like to at least keep the curbing past all the wetland impacts.
gotcha. All right, Chris, got a question? Erica, could you take the meeting for a minute? I just gotta step out for a second.
We probably approve the application while he's gone.
You heard
Mike?
it.
I heard that.
That was, I thought you couldn't hear me. Now everyone can hear me just fine. I see how this works.
Mike, the design,
Speak up, Chris, please.
thanks, Mike, the design that you're proposing is not done in Newington, and our regs specifically say this, that we prefer open drainage as all the other roads. This is a significant change, and we're dealing in the first portion with going from a height of 45 feet all the way down to 21 feet. That's a significant change, and what you've proposed is immediately leaving Nimble Hill Road, and I'm sure everybody realizes this, instead of going up about 8 feet as the current terrain goes up, they're proposing immediately starting going down to the point where there is a cut of over 12 feet on the edge where, Mr. Burns, you were concerned about, which is a significant wall, hopefully rock, for manageability. And then coming back up to cover the bridge 13 feet above below ground, and then going down again, and then coming back up as we're going. And as you do this, going through some relatively flat areas in the back that need some drainage. But the amount of curves that you have on here is over 1,000 feet. I mean, it is significantly different type of road than we have and that we operate on, that we plow. We don't have roads like that. And I just want you to realize that Joe is familiar with building a roadway within the town and gone through it. It's taken a lot of engineering to go through his previous designs there. Many of them we did not do. It was a different project. A lot of these are gonna take a lot of time to scrutinize. I disagree with the chairman that this is an engineering project to be done off-site. This has to be done by the board because these are board decisions on this, on the way the roadway will look. This design, a closed system, looks more like a Portsmouth roadway with a little country flavor. And that's not what we're looking here. We're looking for a similar type of road with some swales on there. So I think the two things on it, this area where you're doing a drastic dive off Nimble Hill Road to go down, when the terrain goes up, it's gonna create a stark difference that you're gonna see. And then it's gonna be undulating up over the areas and down. And that gives me serious concerns as I've gone through and over again to try and understand what's actually here. So it's gonna take a number of workshops, which are open to the public, by the way. You just can't comment, but you're welcome to hear every comment and every concern that is raised. But I just hope you understand what Joe's design is getting into.
Chris, let me respond.
Sure.
Chris, the one thing that they're doing, and I thought we covered this before, but they're not going down off of Nimble Hill for no good reason. The reason they have to do that is because they have to drain the top of the bridge structure both ways. So that's why they're going down and back up, because they can't, in the old days, the bridge would have been the low spot. And then all the water would have run down, gone off the sides, and all the contaminated, dirty water would have gone right into the wetland. Those days are over. DES is gonna require that the high point of that, in that area, be at the top of the bridge and the watershed, both directions, both ways. Which is why they have a 2% slope going down to the drains on both, at the bottom of those, curves. And that's a design that's gonna be forced on you whether you like it or not. There's no way that the bridge can be the low spot.
I'd like to take it offline, but I disagree. From the standpoint, there are different ways of doing this that allow at least flat approach and back drainage each way. But to the extent that there's done that, this is a significant cut and crosses specific constraints that we aren't accustomed to and are gonna have to do some engineering work to look at in detail. And the board is gonna have to make those decisions, not our advisors and engineers. So it's gonna.
So you say you disagree with me on something I was walking in, what were you talking about?
I was talking about the layout on the road. And how this road is being designed significantly different from our current roadways. And it's gonna take a lot of work and a lot of engineering that will involve both workshops with the engineers, but also with the board, because they are board public decisions, not engineering-only decisions.
I've been screaming that for a long time. Where's the disagreement?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh, you said you disagreed with the chairman. I was just trying to pick.
I disagreed with John's approach on on how bridges are done here.
Okay.
Okay. Just the overall concept on there, but we can take that offline, because I think you're wrong.
I think there is, I think John is correct on one thing. It used to be the way of doing, you drain down to the low point, which is into the prime wetlands. You saw what they did with the Dover Point Bridge. They had to take all the water on the Dover Point Bridge, which was going down into salt water, and drain it in, and they created a pond down there in front of the electric supply warehouse there. And all that water has to go down into that, and there's also a pond on the other side that collected. And I don't know all the laws, but that, I think what John was saying is correct about, that you can't drain just into an existing water body.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But the one statement that you have to do everything needs to be addressed, okay?
The what? I'm sorry, Chris.
I disagree with what John said about the design of bridges, okay? Of roadways above bridges, okay? Just on it.
No, so maybe, John, maybe you can, I'm just trying to get trying to get what you're trying to say, I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say. And I think that's what I'm asking you, I'm not trying to pin, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying and where the disparity is here, what's going on, just trying to understand that. I'm not trying to make you wrong or John wrong, I'm just trying to understand. So, could you try explaining it one more time so I can get it?
The drainage off the bridge is not an issue, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. But there are more than this solution on doing that, is all I'm stating,
Okay.
okay?
Is
And
there more
that's
than,
what needs to be
is there
about
more than,
public address.
Joe, is there more than one solution to doing this that you have?
For the open drainage versus closed drainage?
I guess, is that what you're talking about, Chris?
Well, it's two different issues. One of the closed drainage system, but the actual significant changes on the slopes of how this road is built, as opposed to the current terrain, is something that I have some comments on. Okay?
So, yes, just from starting at the beginning of the road, sheet P1 would be the page to look at, everything that we're talking about with the profile on the bottom. We are proposing to go down from Nimble Hill. That's actually the best way you want to design a road, because if we go up from Nimble Hill, we're undoubtedly going to have stormwater coming towards Nimble Hill Road, and especially if you have swales. And then you can do it with closed drainage. You can put catch basins close to Nimble Hill Road and catch it, but you try to avoid bringing water towards existing roads whenever possible. So we went down from Nimble Hill, but then yes, everything that John was saying is correct. We come down at 2%. The town has a minimum slope of 2% for your roadways. Most towns, to be honest with you, are only 1%. I think Newington maybe changed that, recently in the last couple of years. So we can't go 1% down or up. We have to at least go 2%. So that brings us deeper into a cut, to a low point before we get to the wetland. And then we have the high point at the bridge, another low point on the other side of the bridge. And then the existing ground basically does exactly what our road does. After the bridge, we basically try to run the proposed road about 1.5 feet above existing grade and follow that grade, which works out pretty well to actually have 2% slopes, and we have a 3.8% slope, and another 2, and we basically go up and down. That does a couple of things. That lets us keep our road above grade, which provides a better road, a more, structurally stable road, because now we're not cutting into those clays, which these soils that are here are the same soils that are pretty much, I think, throughout a lot of Newington. So if you've ever seen a road that's low in the ground, you might get a lot of cracking of the pavement, a lot of water damage. If there's no real deep swales next to it, you get a lot of water under that road and it heaves. So when having a silty clay road, or subsoil below your road, you want to be up in a fill situation whenever possible. So that's how we provided the road. And that's, I guess, the key is why we need to figure out the curbing, is that if we do decide to go to open drainage, we may have to lower the road so that our ditches, we literally will be 100 and some feet wide by the time we go through the whole cross-section and do a back slope. I provided the numbers in the response to Altus on my initial letter, figuring out how that cross-section would look, but it gets very wide. So then if we go to open drainage, we would probably lower the road, do the ditches to try to reduce the impact of the cutting and at the wetlands.
Okay, so stop right there. Does everyone understand why there's a 4-to-1 slope on the side? That's what we call for. They're trying to save the trees, and they're trying to come up with another design which includes capturing the water within the curbing on the road, catching it in a catch basin, running it out in pipes into basically fields that basically will spread, the water will just spread out over that, and it's in a containment area. It's usually a depression of about a foot deep. How big, John, depending upon the size of this watershed, correct?
Yeah.
So it could be, it could be half the size of this room, it could be really small, it could be larger, depending upon how much water is going into it. So one, you have curbing, that controls the water, and it does look like Portsmouth, as Chris is saying, like, because Portsmouth requires more curbing, so, but it also requires more maintenance, more upkeep, more cost to the town. The other, and he's got, you know, one of the main issues they have here is that prime wetland, and they gotta keep water from going in that, so they have to put curbing in some of those places to keep water from going into it. So, I'm trying to say this and summarize it very quickly. You know, I think you are losing your audience.
Yeah.
So you got benefits on one versus benefits on the other, vice versa. So understand what they're talking about. Does everyone get that? Does everyone, all right, I see that. Was everyone getting it before? I was having a hard time, but.
Dennis, thank you. I think that was a good summary for myself.
Good, thanks, Derek.
Good for me too.
I just wanna make sure, don't agree with me if you don't understand it, all right? It's okay.
Joe, if this is gonna continue at a workshop, the one thing that, and Eric and I did talk about this, is I don't like it when a curb starts and stops, because when they're plowing the road, they're never gonna know, they're gonna hit it, it's gonna be a nightmare. But one of the things that you should consider, and we don't need to talk about it tonight, is super elevating the road and just running curb down one side of it, and then having the other side open, if possible. That way they can at least lean the plow against the curb, they know it's gonna be there, on the other side it'll be open. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it might be an option.
Right. And, if that's one thing that we can resolve tonight is that Eric Weinrib suggested a technical meeting to discuss his letter. And maybe that's where we discuss some of these aspects, and some of the board members maybe should be present at that as well.
When you have a TRC, it's a technical review committee. What was happening is a technical review committee, and it was becoming more cumbersome, and it was actually taking up more time, and it wasn't that friendly to people who were butters who wanted to hear, even though they can be there, it's not a hearing. And also the other thing it had a tendency of becoming was, they were speaking for the planning board. And the planning board, I think that's what Chris was trying to say, and I said this earlier, the planning board is the one who's gonna make the final decisions, and what it seems is what was happening is that the technical review committee would say, well, we recommend this, and that became what it was. It was a decision made there, not by this board. And it should be advisory to this board on what happens, if we are gonna have that kind of a board meeting. All right, I think people sometimes, I think some technical review committees forget that. I think sometimes applicants forget that, but here's the problem. The people on a technical review board, even though they're advisory to us, they could lead you down a path, say they differed, the planning board disagreed, they are still representatives of the town. And you can say, well, wait a minute, we went down this one path with them, they're representing the town, as the town adopted the technical review committee, the planning board disagrees, and now here we are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of redesign. So it's a fine balance between the two, if everyone understands what we're talking about. I like the open process of this, even though it's more cumbersome, but we need to have the technical people here when we're doing it. And it's gonna become very cumbersome for all of you to sit there and listen to all that. And so we can try to narrow that down and get through some of this, and then come back and summarize for everybody here to hear it, to understand what the final outcome was. I think that's what the balance has gotta be. Chris, is that what you were trying to say earlier? Okay.
John, could I, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I think that makes, if I'm hearing what you're saying, that you don't have to send it back to TRC. You can have the technical review. You won't call it that, but it's gonna
Yes.
be a review with your engineer. It'll be open to the public. It won't be a public hearing, because then it could go on forever. But then anyone who wanted to be there could listen, and then if you have questions, then at the next public hearing, those questions could be addressed.
The way the technical review committees were working in the past is planning board members weren't allowed to be there. I think it's a huge mistake. It really is. I think you need to have that, so I think we tried it for several years, 3 or 4 years. There was some good, there was some bad that came out of it. I think overall though, I think this project is so complex that we do need to have some kind of technical review to bring back to the board as advice. The board, I think, is clearly saying, we prefer to have open drainage, all right? And I'm not really sure that we have any other choice. If you were to say, no, we can't do it, you have to take, I'm not sure what the laws say on that. as, you know, like even a bridge, someone could say, well, we wanna build a bridge and we want the town to accept it. I guess technically what I've been hearing is that legally, how can we stop someone, we can't really tell someone how to build a road other than our regulations.
Your regulations, that's
Right,
right.
but we don't have any standard, for example, on a bridge.
Then you're
Yeah.
fairly constrained.
Right.
Well, I mean, we've said it before, we're committed to working with the board,
Sure.
with the town. So, you know, let's get into some of some of the details at
So-
at a workshop.
So what I would like to do is, I think there's two parts, because I think there's some issues here that everyone here wants to know about. There's a couple lots I wanna know about, and how they're being divided. I think how we work out the road, we probably should have some form of a workshop, that is advisory to this board, and then we go over that to make sure everyone understands it. I wanna make sure everyone understands what we're talking about. John, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, or we could just have it could be a full board meeting.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
okay.
makes more
You know.
sense.
All right, I'm willing to do that too, but I just wanna make sure everyone understands it's gonna be a lot of,
It'll be a full board meeting,
yes.
but not a public hearing.
Right.
Just a meeting with the
Okay.
full board.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. That's what I was trying to, I think that's what Chris and I were trying to push for
Sure.
the last 42 days, and we're now sitting here 42 days later, and we haven't got anything else done. And that was our whole point of it.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, I think there was some confusion over workshops, and whether we could have a workshop meeting since we'd already had a formal application submitted. So we're willing to go and engage in workshop discussions
All right, great.
whenever you want to let us back.
You'll be constrained, well, I mean, you'll be constrained about what you can talk about, since it won't be a public hearing. You'll have to keep it focused on these engineering aspects of it, and not get too far afield about things that the public should be able to comment on.
Sure.
Well, I think, okay, all right. We have run things, believe it or not, even when we have public meetings, I usually open it up for public comment. I can see people over there sometimes bursting at the seams, they gotta say something, and I'll open that up. Sometimes,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
and that usually works pretty well,
Okay.
all right? So that's the way I like to run my meetings.
We almost done, Mr. Davis, we go home now.
And we're-
So you can- Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just as a member of the public here trying to understand what's going on, it's very challenging for us to understand. I know people in this public here that have made comments. I share those comments. I don't know if the board has collected these for everybody involved. And as we sit here and learn, your explanation was very good, Dennis, but it appears to be a whole bunch of those other explanations on real issues that I don't understand, and maybe everybody else here does, but I don't. And it's a real challenge for us. I don't know if it's a matter of coming up with a summary of issues that we should need to be informed in, or what the answer is, but it's a real challenge.
Okay, so far what we have is, we have comments from Altus Engineering, we have comments from Planner, we have comments from Mark, wetlands expert Mark West. Trying to think what else we have, replies on those comments from the applicant. All of those are public and they're made available, and probably what we gotta do, John, is, like with the drawings, make them available so they can reach them. And also, there's questions in there. If you've asked a question, you haven't received an answer from a past meeting, you need to bring it up again. All right?
So I understand that, Dennis, but, so I know people that have made comments, the visibility along Nimble Hill for people coming out of Coleman and so forth like that. I didn't ask the question, I don't have an answer to that, so I'm sitting here wondering, when you're looking for public comment, we bring that up again or what? So I'm trying to make it a little more straightforward so we can all share our concerns and understand what the answer is.
All right.
What if they submit things in writing to make sure that we, not limited to that, but if they wanted to, make sure we address it?
Yeah, if you have anything in writing, that's a really good idea. If you have anything in writing, that's best. We can do our best to answer that.
Even an email with bullets.
Yeah?
Yeah, but it's not good, just like, Mr. Marconi has a concern about, Coleman Drive, which I share. He's already asked it to somebody in some form somewhere. I don't know what the response has been from the board, because I'm not involved in an email, so now I gotta ask.
All the responses are right here. There are no emails going back between board
Okay,
members.
so I don't, where's the access then?
All right, so let me explain that to everyone who doesn't know the process. The process is, we do not interact with each other when we go. We don't go out to someplace and say, well, here's a decision at my dinner table, how we're gonna resolve this. It all happens right here.
No, I'm looking for that, I'm looking to understand, who's made comments from the public,
And
right?
what the answers
And
are.
what those comments were, and what the answers were to those, so I can share those same comments and concerns.
I think to date, Derek, the only issues that I'm aware of that people have talked about, I think Bob talked about grading on the left side. I know Mike has talked about the whether or not the Downey Way should be gated or how that should be handled. Mike's also raising concerns about noise, I think, in relationship to the bridge. And I know Edna has talked about site distance from the proposed access on Nimble Hill Road. And then I think some other people have talked about what's gonna happen with the existing residences on lots 5 and 6 on Nimble Hill Road. Other than that, I don't know what else has been raised.
But that's a great list, right?
Yep.
I don't have any answers to that, or even if it's still in play as a concern.
Okay, I got, Erica, you wanna contribute something here?
So when we did the original site walk, which some of you were on, site distance was a big concern of mine and many other members of the public and the board. So I would like to ask you to address what we saw as a concern and have you resolved it.
That's a great question for Joe.
Yes, so we did some more detailed survey work out there. We did have basically a typo on our previous plan. Sheet H1, which is sheet 23,
Yes.
has the site distance profile. And we provided the formula for how you determine site distance. And it has a plus or minus because it's based on the grade leading into the approach of the intersection. If you're going uphill, you don't need as much stopping site distance as you're going downhill. There's a momentum. So we provided a site distance analysis with how much distance we have versus the speed, design speed of 40 miles an hour, and we meet the requirement of site distance. And Eric Weinberg did review this. The one comment he had was, in his recent memo, discusses that you have to look out over lawn area, and that is true. That's true of every single road, really, ever. You always have to pull up to the road. Your eyeball isn't at the edge of pavement. It's back behind the hood of your car. And so you always end up having to look past something that's not pavement. And we don't have actually any trees in the front here. Now, on every road in the Northeast, when you come up to an intersection and there's snowbanks, you stop and then you slowly pull forward until you can see past the snowbank. Our situation wouldn't be any different here, other than the fact that we don't have trees lining Nimble Hill, so the snow could be pushed back further. And so we do meet the site distance for a 40-mile-an-hour road. We have the profile.
Joe, why don't you tell the public what the site distance requirement is and what you have, so we know.
All right, but it changes based on the slope of the road. So the site distance is 325 feet that's needed per AASHTO's requirements, and that's rounded up from the calculation. We have 336 feet looking west, and we only went to 400 feet looking east, but we have great site distance looking east. So it's really the west side is where you have the knoll at heading towards Coleman. So we do meet the site distance requirements, but for the 40-mile-an-hour road, and that's also based on a driver's eyeball being back 14 and a half feet from the solid white line. So that's even further back than most people, usually you stop and then you pull up further. And that's a DOT requirement, that 14 and a half. The DOT bases the sight line on what does it look like at 14 and a half feet back, and what does it look like at 10 feet back. So so we went the further distance. And so I think it's
Joe,
as good as it can be
Joe.
for this location.
do you meet it or not?
Yes,
That's all I wanted to know.
but you gotta read Eric's comments on the all-season
Yeah,
safe site distance, and then that's gonna be the debate.
yeah, and I think that is a debate. I mean, some of us stood there and squatted down and stood, and there is no way there's not gonna be an accident with someone coming over that knoll, speeding. And if someone is stopped, waiting to turn left, there is nowhere to go if you come over that knoll too fast, and you can't keep going. So I mean, I don't know how we address that, but as good as we can do doesn't feel very good to me.
Well, the other thing you do is you design it based on the speed limit and with a factor. So if someone's speeding excessively down the road, that's when an accident's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, so we can't design our road and our site distance for someone going 60, 70 miles an hour down Nimble Hill. That's not how you do it. So I think we may need to work with Eric to kind of fine tune our site distance plans.
Okay.
And maybe there's, some coordination with Public Works to cut, make sure the side slopes are cut and, in the summer months, and we've got adequate, snow clearing, so we can achieve that site distance. Maybe have to be some coordination.
Rick?
I got a question for you. If you're taking a right out of that road, can you see Coleman?
Can you see
Don't
Coleman?
believe so. I don't believe you.
No, you would not be able to see, you won't be able to see the pavement, that's for sure, but you won't be able to see, you'll barely be able to see a car at Coleman.
So if someone pulls out, that you're not gonna see.
Well, correct, but we're 350 feet plus from Coleman. So if you're taking a right out of our driveway, you're going uphill, and you're,
Okay.
You have a long distance before a car turning left out of Coleman would be an issue.
Okay.
And that's not really a conflict point anyway. If you're turning right and a car is turning left out of Coleman, that's, how far down is that, Joe? It's,
Well, it's 350 feet
yeah.
plus, yeah.
Eric, I think I would like to have Eric here when we discuss that. That's based on 40 miles per hour, and you can't sit there and say, we can't build it because we can't justify someone who's speeding. That's the issue. This is, and then how far back are you, and just look at your own driveway, your own road, how far do you have to look for the line of sight? If you had something like 100 feet or 50 feet, I'm gonna start running into issues. I thought it was a lot worse than what it is, but if I was coming out of Coleman, I'd be concerned coming out of Coleman.
It is.
The line of sight coming out of Coleman, the road itself would never pass today's standards. And so I'm sitting here they just about meet it, but that was at 40 miles an hour. What happens when you put it to 30?
Well, 30, we did a design
That's
speed of
the
40
posted
miles
speed
an
limit
hour.
there, right?
30 now.
What's that?
We did a design speed of 40 miles an hour to show that we meet it for a higher speed.
Okay, yep,
Because we know if we came in and said it was 30, everybody would say, well, nobody drives 30,
yep,
which is probably true. Everybody drives,
a little faster.
right. And then I guess the technical way to really figure out the speed and the sight distance is you do a speed study. And you'd have a guy like Steve Pernaw would do a speed study, put down a couple, sorry.
There we go. Let's do one. Joe.
You'd put down a couple, basically those airstrips. He could figure out the speeds of the road. You take the 85th percentile of the actual speed, and that's the speed you use. But that would be, so we went 10 miles an hour above the posted speed, so we wouldn't have to do all that. But that would at least tell you what the 85th percentile of the actual speeds driving on Nimble is. As long as all of you don't go really fast over it
Police department have it?
when you see those data.
Wait. What was the question?
Doesn't the police department have a speed trailer?
It doesn't think it records speed.
No, they don't have one that records. A lot,
Yeah, it does.
most of them do.
Yeah, it does. It's never-
They record.
And we've had strips out there that tested that street too. Now, what happens
the slower, well, again, they're assuming it's a 40-mile-an-hour design speed, or posted speed limit, it's really 30. The slower you go, the better their pace gets.
I understand that, I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is the view is still bad coming out of Coleman Drive, no matter how fast they're coming down the road.
No, God, I mean, I know, I'm looking at this plan, and I don't know if you even have 100 feet of, sight
They're like 3 or 4 times
Looking
more
to the
better
east,
than.
right?
I got more than 14 noses out in front of me to see which is coming which way.
You're gonna buy Mr. Young's property out.
Coleman's bad.
Yeah, he's a nice neighbor, and I'm gonna get busy with him.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, the slower the speed, the better it would be for everybody. The reality, though, is, and I don't know if there's anybody from law enforcement here, but the reality is, Nimble Hill Road is straight as an arrow. And you can post it at 10 miles an hour, no one's gonna drive 10 miles an hour. People drive according to conditions, so that's the problem.
And once we pave it, it's gonna be wonderful.
Well, then it's
We know
gonna be,
that
then it's
too.
gonna be a race.
The fact of the matter is, we have to do something with the issue, because if we don't, it could be a problem, and somebody's gonna get hurt. We've had one child die on an intersection in town, we don't need any more deaths. That's my concern,
Someone died?
down in front of Simplex Wine Table down there.
The traffic lights,
What was it?
the traffic lights.
Oh, really? Were they walking?
It was, they didn't see the child, I guess, I don't know the whole story, but I know that's when they died. And that's my concern when we took over Woodbury Avenue, Dennis, as a select board, I was concerned with that. It's a very dangerous intersection, people trying to get across there to the malls and so forth. With the hotel we were gonna build, and I was on the board at the time,
All right,
a little history.
all right, anything else on this? I think they meet the requirements, that's what I'm hearing. All right, so I think that issue, we're going back, I would like to hear from Eric, all from Altus Engineering, to make sure we got that resolved. I wanna keep moving along with the other issues. There was another issue that we're talking about, Chris, you brought up a lot that you were concerned about, there was a particular lot.
The lots at the beginning of the,
Is that what the residential homes on it right now?
and the back portion of it, just what the intention is there and what they're trying to do.
Okay, so what drawing would I go to first?
OV1.
OV?
OV is in Victor,
Yeah,
1.
what sheet is that?
It's the second sheet in the plan set. It's just the overall
Yep.
subdivision plan, it's probably the easiest to see.
Yep.
Chris, do you want to elaborate on your concern, or do you want me to do it?
I think that an easier one is A4. No. That's a better one.
Sheet 4?
A4.
A4.
That one is, to make the best plan may be A1. I'm sorry to jump around, but that may have to blow up.
All right, let's go to A1, we'll start with there, okay, what's the issues, Chris?
So the first lot is being changed, so it's a non-conforming lot, and the conformances are changing because the taking of the land, the purchase of the land for the new roadway is changing the setbacks and the whole dynamics of that lot. You can take a look at OV3, which is sheet number 13, is the proposed redesign of the existing buildings, and there are some problems in what's assumed there. There is no adherence to the road frontage on Nimble Hill Road. Sure.
Okay, so Chris, let me ask you a question, I'm gonna try and move some things along, I'll ask this question to the applicant. The new lot you developed in there, and you're putting a line down the 2 residential homes that are there?
Yes.
Yep. All right, there's one there and there's one there.
Correct.
Are we making a non-conforming lot?
Well, the lot is, the use of that lot as it exists today is legally non-conforming. There's a 4-unit,
Mike, he asked about the lot. The lot is conforming,
the lot that we're creating
is conforming.
is conforming,
The
yes.
use is not.
So you have frontage on, you have 200-foot frontage on the front of that lot?
Not on Nimble, but on the proposed road, on Shafford.
Okay, so I'm talking about the lot that's left behind, that's not part of the
Yeah,
subdivision.
so the newly configured tax map 12 lot 6 is 2.08 acres as proposed. And it presently doesn't enjoy 200 feet of frontage on Nimble, nor will it as reconfigured, but it will be more conforming with respect to frontage after Shackford Lane is built, so it will have compliant, you know.
I'm talking about the existing lot.
So 12.5, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm not sure what lot that is. That would be 12.5, yes.
So 12.5 is not part of the current application?
I understand that, but you're creating a lot there.
No, we're not.
That's just, that lot line, that red line
That
is always
red
there?
line that you see there is the existing lot line between the
Okay.
two.
I wanted to make sure that was the case, sorry.
So that lot is currently non-conforming
Yep.
to lot size, frontage, and density. There's an existing duplex on it. It's legally non-conforming, let's make that clear. As is the existing lot next door, which has a quad, 4-unit.
Yep, so the use is on, I understand that is not changing.
Yep.
All right, so I wanted to make sure that we weren't creating a non-conforming lot, and we are. We're not, we are not. So Chris, what was the other issues that you had on that particular lot? Can you use this right here, or do you wanna use something different?
You can use this one right here.
All right,
The setback from Shackford Way is not 15 feet, it's 40 feet, okay, from the roadway.
So the way your ordinance reads is that the planning board, I believe the way your ordinance reads, the planning board, when you have a lot that has more than one frontage, the planning board will decide which lot the front setback is, how it's applied. So we made the assumption, just because the existing access is off Nimble Hill, that the frontage is off Nimble Hill, it's primary frontage, so therefore the setback off Shackford is technically a side line setback. And that's per your ordinance. If the board were to say that Shackford Lane is the primary frontage, which doesn't really make a lot of sense given the existing configuration of the driveway access and the units themselves facing Nimble Hill, then we would have we'd be creating a non-conforming.
and do you meet the side setbacks on Shackford?
We do. We're proposing to eliminate the existing garage that's shown there. You can see it kind of with an X through it on that plan, approximate to that, grade, that proposed grade number 38 there. So that garage comes down, but then we do meet that setback.
Chris, does that satisfy your question?
No. On a corner lot, a corner lot has the benefit of frontage on 2 different roads. It also has the difficulty in that the setback comes from both roads unless waived by the board, okay? We haven't granted that waiver. Secondly, the front setback is shown as off Nibble Hill Road with 40 feet. You are constructing a parking lot within there. Third point is that you're connecting that parking lot because of Shackford Lane's intersection to the adjacent lot, which is currently a shared driveway. You are further encumbering that with an additional traffic, making it more non-conforming in a shared driveway. So you're just compounding a number of different things in order to do that.
Sure. And one of the things we can do, assuming this existing configuration were to remain, we can certainly remove that parking from the setback. We can separate the driveways so that they're on each individual lot, although currently the duplex lot 12.5 does share access and parking for the rear units of the 4-unit building. So that would remain, but we can adjust, we can move the driveway further away from Shackford, and we can have parking outside of that setback, so that would work. But we're really kind of making, you know, we're making a conforming lot with a non-conforming use on it it's already non-conforming now, whether we make the lot, you know, the lot can't really be made big enough because you don't allow quads.
So I understand the building that's there. Where are the things that are not seen? Where's the septic system and where's the septic field for that?
I know, Joe, you've shown a 4K area.
Not for the lot, for the existing dwelling. Where is the septic field and the septic system?
We don't really know.
So we haven't,
Here's my concern, is that you are either putting a roadway or something else across the septic field,
sure.
just because no one knows where it is.
Okay.
And we did do test pits on that lot. If that happens, we would have to build a new septic for that structure.
But that's what Chris is bringing up, that needs to be, that's part of what this board looks at.
That's right.
Right, yeah, we can work,
Nobody knows.
we can work with Mr. Young to locate the existing
Okay.
septic field and leach field. I believe there's a plan on file, John, for septic design for that lot that we can get.
I've not seen it.
We can get that from, well, Kevin sent me a photo, Kevin Kelly sent me a photograph of, you know, one of the sheets, so we can
Okay.
get that as well. And
So let me ask one additional question on that lot, and that is, you have a 4 parking spot in the front of the intersection there. Assuming there is not a septic field problem, can you relocate that parking behind, to the north of the building with access from Shackford Lane to provide all the parking for that building and eliminate the driveway, the shared driveway on the adjacent lot?
we could, we'd have to look at that because of access to the front unit. It would just be kind of, you know, problematic to access that front unit, that's the only issue. So we could look at that, though, we'll look at that.
I would think a sidewalk down to each of those units could be done in a very conforming way.
Sure.
What I'm looking for is, I know this is a existing building on it. I'm also looking for any way we can to improve the area and to make things more conforming if they are not too difficult. I think there's some things you can look at to do that. I'll leave it up to your imagination to come forward to the board.
Mike, are you
Yes, sir.
going to talk about the conversation that we had about redeveloping?
Yes, I am, yes, I
So
just
what
I
what
wanted to
I've
hear
asked-
what Chris had to say first
So,
before.
you should have stopped them because it's probably all for naught. But I've talked to Mike about redeveloping lots 5 and 6 by removing everything that's there and building one new building that would be a couple of units, 4 or 5 units or whatever it is. But the concern that they have is if they remove the lot line between lot 12, tax map 5, tax map 12, lot 5, is that they lose the non-conforming density there. So it's gotta be sort of a whole, an approach at how the whole lot is redeveloped.
So we're opening up the, here we go.
The can of worms.
So this is a rough sketch plan of what could possibly happen.
Who wants a copy?
I've got,
Okay.
actually, don't board them all. So, John and I have spoken about this, kind of what I had envisioned with this, the front of this development was to potentially merge these 2 lots together. You know, lot 12-5 is non-conforming due to size and frontage and density. The other one is as well. This is really, again, just a sketch plan, which, what I've tried to lay out here, we've tried to lay out here is, it's a 6-unit configuration. The theme that we're sort of trying to go for here, We don't have architectural renderings to show you, those would come next. But, you know, farmhouse in the front, that would house 2 units, it would have the look and feel of a single-family, you know, farmhouse. Carriage house in the middle, that would have 1 or 2 units in it as well, and then a barn-type structure to the rear that would have a couple of units in it also. Sort of creating a, you know, more of a rural, you know, we're obviously talking about gateway into the village, and sort of, you know, bringing some new life to this front lot. And so this is a direction we can take. We were gonna take this direction a little bit later on down the road, but if this is an issue that helps create more conformity, realizing that it's non-conforming already, but we'd have obviously state-of-the-art septic systems, we'd be tying everything into water, we'd tie everything into gas, it would all be new construction, all to code, and it would have a look and feel that hopefully would be in tandem and in keeping with some of the surrounding properties across the street, you know, as an example. So trying to capture some of that. You can look at, you know, the restoration of the farmhouse on Lydia as an example of what could be done, but this would all be new construction, obviously, as opposed to renovation and addition as they did there. So something like that is what we're hoping to do, to make it look like it's all one property in one ownership, but it's really 6 units.
Thank you for sharing that.
How's that?
They just opened up a bunch of stuff here.
Well, this is what I was asked by your planner to, you know, to dream up, and this is something that we've been thinking about for the last 6 months of, you know, what we might do.
Yep.
You know, it's,
I understand what you're doing, I understand you're trying to improve the situation, but there's a lot of hurdles we'll have to get over with this particular thing. Basically, having three dwellings, oh, excuse me, yeah, 3 separate dwelling buildings on a single lot, and that is gonna that could possibly open up Pandora's box in this town.
sure. Yeah, and we realized that, and that's why we weren't really inclined to sort of, you know, introduce this, you know.
I really like your thinking out of the box, though.
What we'd hope to
Kudos
do,
for that.
is work separately through planning and through zoning if need be. Because we imagine that might be a step in the process to go to the zoning board, but to incorporate 12.5 in with 12.6, I guess it is, I hope. And have a separate application process for that, knowing that, you know, we can address some of Chris's concerns about, you know, driveways and access and things now on this plan, and then step 2 would be to start working on this front plan into a design and bring you some renderings, show you what it might look like, figure out the path that we need to take to do this. And, you know, we're hoping that this would be something that you folks would like to see. And if so, we'll continue sort of working to go much beyond this, obviously.
All right, so what's before us right now, thank you for that information, and by the way, I just wanna say thank you for taking that risk and going out and reaching out and trying to show, hey, we're thinking about other things.
Sure.
We're looking at it, you did it with the bridge, sort of the same thing you're doing here, sort of doing something here. I know there are issues with those 2 front lots, as Chris is bringing up. And you gotta decide, I mean, I have 1 application before me, I don't have what you're planning on doing in the long term.
Yep.
So how do we proceed with that? And probably right now, for us to keep things simple, because otherwise I'm afraid this project could become incredibly bogged down with a lot of, oh, this is what we wanna do, and it requires variances and so forth.
Yes, sir.
I think Chris has asked some questions like where's the septic systems, where's the water lines? I look at the frontage of that house, the existing house is there right now, as an example, as the front was there before the road was there, so the front is still there. All right, so to me, it's a side thing on that road. Other people may think differently about that, I'm not sure. But he does bring up some other questions about,
Yeah, I think if,
parking, and all that is of concern.
and I don't know, Chris, if you're able to get some of your comments, like all of your comments, if you haven't already said them all, to John, and then we can try to address those in the next revision. Because I would like to, yes, I'd like to have this be a separate
Yeah.
review process, application in its entirety, work on some of Chris's comments so we can make sure we still have compliance. You know, we obviously understand we have legal non-conforming uses there by, you know, by right. But we understand we're making some modifications, we can show where the septic is, and we can get that detail you want.
So I think those questions need to come, be given to John, if he has, go ahead.
I'm gonna agree with Chris, and I'm happy to have this discussion with, you know, if you think I'm wrong, but my read of the ordinance is that, so the planning board's gonna decide where the frontage is, and that's the frontage. I don't think you can use the frontage on Shackford Lane for purposes of meeting class 5 frontage, but then say that your front yard is Nimble Hill Road in terms of that being your front yard setback. And then the side yard, the way it's defined, it's a little bit unique, but the way it's defined, it says that the side yard, regardless of that point, that the side yard has to meet the front yard setback as well. Now, you can ask for a waiver from that, given the way this is already, and the planning board can consider that. But I agree with you that on Shackford, that should be what, 40 feet?
Yes,
Unless you get a waiver. So I'll leave that there.
thank you.
Oh, how horrible you are, you disagree with me?
That's
Actually,
my
I love it when people disagree with me, because that's what this board is all about, and you have an open, honest discussion about that, that's good. Was that a good reminder?
Thank you. I'm not fired.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so we knew that it was under the board's jurisdiction and discretion to, you know, sort of just decide which was the frontage.
And you understand what we're trying to do?
Sure.
Is to make everything that's reasonably possible to make things more conforming to what the current town has voted for ordinances.
Sure, yep, and a waiver may be appropriate, given that there's an existing condition, there's a structure there that, you know, absent being torn down,
So,
won't be compliant no matter how you do
so
it.
the one thing I do want to get clarified, if you have frontage on a road, and that's your front, and then you put another road, give it some more, I don't want to call it frontage, but something, how can you say what was the frontage is no longer the frontage?
So it's
Because
two,
you changed the lot.
it's two issues. One is frontage on a class 5 road. And the planning board gets to decide whether they want to require the frontage be on Nimble Hill, which they don't have, or Shackford. Now, both are gonna be class 5 roads, so
They don't have frontage on Nimble Hill Road?
not enough.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, but.
So you get to so it makes sense, you say, yeah, Shackford is the front, that's what they're asking you to do, Shackford is the frontage, and it meets that. But then the secondary issue is because it's a corner lot, every zoning ordinance treats corner lots uniquely. And in Newington, when you have a corner lot, because you're worried about this road and this road, you essentially require 2 front yard setbacks.
It has to be contiguous, I think is a word that's used.
Or continuous.
It's just speaking total frontage.
So your frontage your front setback requirement applies on both sides.
Which is kind of a stupid ordinance, because why would the planning board care where the frontage is?
So, I mean-
Because the setback is
It's a
the
matter,
setback.
it's been held up for, well,
So
I've been
it's
on
a
board.
unique provision,
Well,
but
no,
For-
I'm saying,
for
Chris,
public
why does it
safety.
matter where you decide where the frontage is?
it does, that's a
Because
separate
it's a
issue.
public road,
But what does it
public
matter?
and public
The
safety.
front setback is on both roads.
Chris said that initially, that he thought that it should be 40 feet off of Shackford. And the applicant said, well, I think that that's a side yard, so it's 15 feet.
But the ordinance says.
And I'm agreeing with Chris that, and they understand now, that it should be 40,
Right.
which is a separate issue
Yep.
from
Yep.
frontage.
We had a chart on there as a note, that talked about, and I'm trying to find it. I'll do it later, because I'm not gonna spend lots of time on this, I think it's a movie.
We lost the
Movie
audience.
resolved.
The audience left.
got people here.
I know.
All right. Chris, was there something else in that lot?
No, I think we got the gist of it. We need to look at each of the different issues and get some more information on this, you know, what's on the ground there.
I mean, and if you like this direction, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to let us know, because we'll continue to move forward and sort of in that vein.
I am not gonna open that, I am not gonna
There you
open
go.
that up right now.
Well, and the reason I agree, Mr. Chairman, this board needs a whole lot more help from other boards and from the town to make that happen.
Sure.
So, and that's to be seen, but it's worth, as Dennis stated, think outside the box, because it gives a lot of advantages.
Sure.
And there may be significant enough exceptions to other members of the town who would grant that waiver, not us.
Sure. So we'll continue to look at that as an option,
Great.
and,
Mr. Chairman, I have one other comment, and that is, it's really something that John, all of these things John has done a good job of bringing out, I'm just emphasizing. His point number one is concerned about the phasing of construction in us wards, and what the use of Coleman Drive is during the construction process. The construction of the wetlands crossing and the initial roadway is gonna take a significant time to do that. Can you do that and delay construction on the back until that is finished?
the back,
Everything beyond the wetlands crossing, the prime wetlands crossing.
the way, we could certainly talk about phasing, but, and maybe.
No, he's not talking about phasing, he's talking about construction sequence.
Sure.
So we
I'm
want
sorry,
the bridge to go in, we want the culvert to go in first, and that's where all construction activity is gonna happen. We don't want you saying, oh geez, we need to wait until August of next year to de-water the prime wetland stream, that stream. So we're gonna use Coleman Drive to build the rest of the road. That's not gonna happen.
Great,
All construction has got to go off of Nimble Hill Road.
we can agree to that as a condition of approval, we're happy to do that.
We understand you need to come up from the prime wetlands from both directions, but going on all the way down to the cul-de-sac with the construction on Coleman Drive, I think the
They don't need to go to both,
applicant.
they're not gonna need to go to both sides, they can do the work, their work, they gotta de-water it anyway, they can do it all from the Nimble Hill Road side. Once that culvert is in, they can march across, and
Okay.
then they're gonna have to bring some construction equipment down, Chris, because obviously
No,
you
oh,
gotta take
yeah,
a
I
house
understand,
down.
I understand,
But it should be minor, you know?
It's not like random trucks fill it, and we can make arrangements to use that because it's a well-built road. It's been repaved on there. So it's just a matter of, that may, the focus on the crossing is to get that enough to construction equipment. That may lengthen delay the construction of the rest of the road. Thank you.
All right, then we have the one issue that I know we need to resolve, and I was talking to John about this earlier today. And it's getting, it's been going on for over 2 hours now. Was lot line adjustments. And I wanna make sure that I wanna do this correctly.
Sure.
All right, so to me, the way I look at it is, and John, you can help me with this, I'm still a little bit confused by it. Seems to me we have to do the lot line adjustments, create this one big lot, then do a subdivision on the whole thing. But it can be done in one swoop, according to what John's saying. I'm going, how do you do that and record that? Because to do a lot line adjustment, it seems to me it'd be a nightmare for a legal person going in and trying to research what land they own and what they don't own. So it seems to me we do the lot line adjustment contingent upon approval of the subdivision. And then that the subdivision then takes the one large lot that we created and create these new subdivisions. Am I,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they don't wanna do a lot line.
They can happen
adjustment.
all in the same night,
Yeah.
but we have to happen,
But they don't, I mean, obviously, you don't want, they don't want you to grant a lot line adjustment approval until they know they're gonna get the subdivision approval. So the way you worded it, Dennis, is perfect. The board would potentially approve the lot line adjustments, subject to or conditioned on the approval of the subdivision.
so the way I would like to handle it, John, if it's all right with you, because I'm sort of like, I like things taken by baby steps and it makes it very clear, is to different applications to do lot line adjustment, waiving the fees, just getting it, so we get it on record.
They already have. Yep.
We have a separate
They have
application.
separate
You
applications.
have separate applications?
Yes.
Well, separate application for the lot line
For the lot line
adjustments.
adjustment
I didn't know
and the
that.
subdivision. Yep.
Okay, so we need to deal with those individually, and then, as I said, with the conditional approval, and then we do the subdivision after we get a lot of record on that lot. Am I correct?
I agree with you. Yep.
All right, so we haven't done that yet. That could be an hour's worth of time right here alone. I mean, if we just deal with that. So that's one of the issues we need to resolve. So what I see going on here, and with 42 days in between meetings, a lot of stuff has been forgotten. And that's what I'm starting to say. I think that's what Derek was trying to say earlier. And I'd like to have, and I know you have a list, and Eric has got a list, and you have that list going, but there's several things that we haven't really resolved, and I wanna make sure we get it on a sheet that is like, all right, we looked at line of sight issue, we resolved that tonight, all right?
Check it off. Feel
Check
good.
that off. I want the next one. Every time we have a new one, we check it off, and we move on down that line. And we've pretty much been doing that with what Eric has been doing, and what you've been doing, John. But I wanna make sure that we get these things captured and we don't forget something, because with the meetings, after, we have other proposals before us, and we can't remember everything.
Sure.
So, John, what do you suggest how we deal with that? Maybe you already are, but,
Well, one of the things that Dennis reminds me, and he does it in a nice way, is that I work for you. I'm not an elected member of the board, so I can tell you something. Really, it's your decision ultimately, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. So I'll bring up all these points, and you can either, take this and throw it away, or you think it's of value, we can go on it. So to my way of thinking, I would like to have a work session, and I know that you like to take meetings off in the summer, and we haven't done that as of yet, but I would like to have a work session, the second Monday of August, to resolve these outstanding issues. One of the things, for instance, we could do is have a very simple, lot line adjustment plan, just so and I know you submitted it, but a simple rendered plan, so we could all look at it and say, yeah, we understand these. So when we get to the point where we have to deal with that, we'll deal with it. I'd like you to have responses to my memo and Eric's memo, so the board can go through those in advance of the meeting, and then we can sit around a table and say, what about this, what about that? So that's what I think that would be the most productive use of our time, if the board is willing, and I know it's in another meeting. But it also is predicated on the applicant, being able to respond in 2 weeks, time? I don't have my phone.
So August 9th, you're saying?
Whatever the second Monday is. So
That
the
would be
9th.
August 9th.
August 9th.
I mean, if you don't have time, I don't.
Well, you're asking for us to have responses to
Well,
Eric's.
to be productive, I think you need to have responses to my memo, to Eric's memo, and then I can give you another, a list of things, like I want Eric to be prepared to review the line of sight and respond. I'd like him to respond to Chris's comments about why the road is, there's so many vertical curves in the road. Sort of things like that,
Sure.
so that we can all be prepared to sort of roll up our sleeves and make some progress.
Yeah, we should be ready. Joe says yes.
I think so. I mean,
But
we
that
can have
doesn't,
it.
but that, to me,
there's-
you can't deliver this to me on Monday or Friday, the day of, or the Friday before, because I need to get this stuff to the board so they can review it.
So when, John, do
That's
you?
too soon then, I think.
When do you need it?
Well, I don't know, I mailed the board stuff on Thursday, and you guys got it, I guess, so, I would say no later, I would like to have
The
it
5th.
I don't have a calendar, what's the Monday before,
The second.
That's a week from today.
second?
It's a week from today.
I think realistically, if you could have it to me by the 5th, I think that would be fine. That would give the board the weekend to review it. I don't think it's realistic to think you're gonna get it before then, are you?
No,
Right,
that's-
correct. And we might not have everything. There's bigger issues, there's bigger comments like drainage report, detailed comments versus notes on the plans, things like that. But we can get as much of it as we can done by the 5th and then go over it.
Well, and I mean the morning of the 5th, because I need to mail this stuff out to the board. I'll email and hard copy it, but, Dennis, is that too quick?
As much as I wanna do it, John, I don't know you're gonna be able to get it done on time. Secondly is, we have these two lists here, and applicants, the people who are sitting on the audience haven't seen any of it, they wanna see some of it. But I think we should be doing, we can try it for the 9th, just do the best we can with it.
What would you
And if we
rather
don't
do?
get it done.
Well, I know you were, would you rather go to the second or the fourth Monday of the month and have them be prepared? Or better prepared, is that?
I think if we can get some of these things off of the agenda that we have, the list we already have, and get them, and go over them with Eric being here, and the board sits there and we look at all of them, and we have time to read them and get them done. But you need to keep a running list of the things that we need to be answered.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not gonna be able to answer the issue with whatever it is, whatever we're.
Whatever, yeah.
Unresolved, but have it on that list as unresolved.
Okay.
All right, so I think what we need to do is just capture those and then line them up and then, so we don't lose them. I think that's something that's gonna happen on a project of this size. That's why I was talking about we need to deal with, let's take little chunks, let's get the lot line adjustments done. Let's get that part done. Let's get the line of sight done. You know, let's get these other things, as they come up, let's get them done. I don't wanna keep putting, next meeting. And the next meeting is 42 days from now.
No,
And that's what happened on the last one. I mean, I'm still upset about that, that
I
happened.
think the two of you are talking about the same thing. And I-
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is an incremental list and recording what the issue was and how it was resolved. Sometimes data needs to be found. That'll be found, such as the sighting distance calculations we put in place, the board will vote on it. That not only will resolve it, but that ought to be part of our record as to when this application is made. These are issues that came up, and this is how we publicly and legally address them to everyone's concern.
Right.
And so we have a record of how we approach a particular project and the list of the issues and how that's done. And I think we haven't done it in the past. It's recommended, I think the latest example of the training done by the state group that does training on it, identified this is one of the things that a lot of boards don't do. And we do that, but in a haphazard type of way. And we do have a list. Jane has done an excellent job of capturing all the audience comments and get 5 abutter comments that she has in there. By extracting those, we can address those, and they were all mentioned tonight, put those on record and keep that as part of our final decision as backup information. So I think that's exactly what both of you are proposing, so.
That's all I want, John, is just to keep a running list of stuff. All right, and if Keith is combining Eric's and yours together, just keep a running list.
And if I could make a suggestion, I think it would maybe more productive if Joe is working on answering all these comments in detail for the next public hearing, which I believe would be the 23rd. We get that workshop on the 9th, where we start to get into, some of these questions about.
There's a lot of things that are very simple on my memo and Eric's memo that could be resolved by the 9th, so just get them off the list.
Yep, okay,
And
yeah.
I've got 27 comments?
Yep, so we can,
24,
yeah, so if we're.
Eric's got 40-something. So if we could whittle that down half, then we can make some progress.
But I want this board to act on them.
Right.
So, and
Yeah,
then
that's fine.
what I would like to see is the items that are finalized, they go on the bottom of the list, like they're done, resolved. They're still there, we can review them, that's a record of it.
So, I mean, my thought would be, take my memo, take Eric's memo. If you don't have Word copies, we'll send you Word, so you don't need to retype them. And, Eric will not be here on the 9th.
All right, so a date to be determined, we can announce it, if it's not the night, we can make
He's
it.
on vacation that week.
All right. This what happens during the summer, that's when we take August off, we try to.
About the following.
16th.
Even though we get already comments addressed before the meeting.
Erica, help me, any ideas?
Well, I think it won't be productive if we don't have Eric, so I think the 9th is off the table. I think it's fine to find another night. I just want to reiterate that if they're not going to be ready with the information we need to resolve any issues, then there's no point having a meeting. So, and it's not a criticism of anybody, but if we're going to get to the 9th and we're going to spend 2.5 hours and not
finalize things.
get to something,
Yes.
I don't think that that's.
I think that's the frustration here. I think we gotta just get these things done, and we go over these two lists and get them done, let's just do it.
Do
All
we
right.
have any comments from Mark West?
I'm sure John's got some, but they pretty much worked out a lot of the stuff that was here in the public meeting. I think he does have a comment, a sheet like this from Mark. So, hey, John, you got comments from Mark West as well, right? We've already gone over those, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, but all of those should be incorporated into the entire package of things that we, because it's a matter of public record. So, all right, so, John, it's gonna be dependent upon Eric, because if he's not available, I don't think it's, like tonight, we're only able to go so far.
Mr. Chairman, I think in order to avoid going afoul of the public hearing law, because now we're gonna be going through the list and the application, I think calling it a work session might be problematic, and that, it's really a special session. You're gonna have an additional meeting just for this application, and since you were gonna invite public comment anyway, it would be my recommendation that it's cleaner if you would, once we figure out a date, you just continue it.
Yes, to that date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And treat it as.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it the other way, where you just have a meeting, I don't like that.
And you're gonna have the full board there, you're gonna be getting into, I think it's cleaner.
I agree. So, John, what are you looking at?
I'm waiting for Eric to respond. He read my text message.
All right.
I just want to know when he's returning from vacation.
Are there any other issues tonight that are like these big nuggets that we haven't resolved?
I have a question for them.
Yeah.
About a rumor,
What's the rumor?
about the Coleman Drive Road being gated off.
If there's a rumor about anything about Coleman Drive Road, we don't know what it is.
John mentioned something about that tonight, and John, that's the first time I heard of it, was tonight in a public hearing, nobody else here knows about it.
So,
That was not me in the public meeting, is what I'm saying. About being gated off.
I was approached by a selectman. He's back on the 11th. He leaves Friday. What does that mean?
The 11th is a Wednesday.
He's back on the 11th. So he leaves Friday.
That's the 13th.
No, he leaves on the 6th or
Leaves on the
something.
He's back.
No, he leaves on the 30th, this Friday, and he returns on the 11th. He got a good vacation.
He's gone.
So
And
the-
then he leaves again Friday?
No.
Oh,
He's
okay.
gone from the 30th of July through the 11th. So we could have a meeting on the 16th and 23rd, but it'd be back-to-back Monday nights. I don't know if people
Won't
are,
do you any good.
What about the 11th? Would a Wednesday night work for the board? Because it would work
if
for
he's
us.
coming back on the 11th, I don't know when he's coming back.
He's not gonna be ready. August
What
20,
about the 12th?
But I guess, in light of that, I guess I hate to do it, but I almost think we should just continue the public hearing to the 23rd.
Yeah, and then you could do 2 weeks after to wrap everything up that you need.
I just don't know. I mean, if he gets back on the 11th.
It's fine with us because we've got a lot of work to do and we can get everything done. The only thing the unfortunate part is we don't have a, definitive direction on road design and curbed, closed drainage versus open work, but we're.
I'm happy to meet with you, a couple members of the board, and Eric on Thursday of this week on the 29th, if you want to try to do that. But that's the last opportunity we have, is this Thursday.
Well, obviously knowing that.
That's if maybe the board doesn't feel comfortable doing that, I don't know. But then Kerry wouldn't recommend it, so we don't do that.
We're not doing that. We're.
John, the problem is having board members at
I mean, you certainly could do John, Eric,
yes,
and then
and we
to
know,
work through some of the technicalities.
and we have done that, and what I'd like you to do, John, I think it's probably the best we're gonna get out of this, though, I think the board wants to be involved, it's gonna be, you look at it, it's all gonna be advisory to this board, and then we have to have a discussion on it.
So you guys need to reach out to Eric. I've got a 9 o'clock meeting with him on Thursday. You need to reach out to him and see if we can pull off a meeting after the 9 o'clock meeting. You, me, Joe, and Eric. That's our last opportunity.
Yep.
All right, so
And then we'll continue the public hearing to the 23rd, right?
I wanna meet some specific things next time we get together. John, I wanna meet some specific things, some goals next
Yeah.
meeting. I wanna do conditional approval on all of these issues we have resolved, or at least addressed, between what you, Eric, and Mark West had questions on.
Okay.
And I wanna go with the answers, and we're gonna go over all of those, but I have to have the players here.
I know.
If I can't have the players here, where it's gonna be another night just spending here, we're going over it, we're not getting things done.
I agree.
All right,
I'm here.
good. Yes, I know. Can we do that? 23rd?
Can,
Anytime, in the meantime, you're gonna be here next,
No,
23rd, yeah.
it'll be the 23rd of August.
The fourth Monday is the 23rd, you right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're ready to come back whenever you
before you
want.
continue this, I know you just got this tonight, or you claim you've only got my memo tonight. Can we run through it real quick? Because
Yep.
I wanna make sure there's nothing you disagree with before we move on.
There is one thing I disagree on.
Oh.
There's the very last item.
Well, let's go through
Yeah.
page by page.
Can I
Real
get my
quick.
question answered?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
My question was about blocking off the road. Coleman.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, I'm sorry, so to, Rick, I'm sorry. One of the selectmen who lives on Coleman Drive asked me if the road could be blocked off, could be gated. And my, opinion is that if you look at sheet OV1, the overall subdivision plan, I just don't think it makes, I don't think that road's ever gonna get used. If you live at the end of the cul-de-sac on lot 7 or 8, and you're going to the Newington Town Hall, why would you take down the road? And actually, OV1 doesn't even show it well, because, there's a wicked curve in that road. Joe, what road,
P1?
C1? No.
P1
What is it?
maybe.
P1?
P, let's look at. No, yeah,
Maybe sheet 13 of 37, that shows an overall grading.
I'm just trying to show the curvature of that road.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sheet OV3, which is 13.
Sheet 13.
I think it's pretty clear that if you live on any of the lots beyond Downing Way, there's no reason you would ever take a right and go to Coleman Drive. That's my opinion. Now, if a tree fell down across the beginning, sure you would. So if you're going to Portsmouth or you're going towards Pease, I don't think there's a reason you'd ever use Downing Way. Now, if we approve the subdivision, the road gets built in 5 years, the selectmen say they want to put up a gate, that's a selectmen's issue, but I don't think that there's a reason to block it off.
Wouldn't that defeat
the
purpose?
Yeah.
I disagree. Our ordinance on dead-end streets requires, streets not to exceed 1,500 feet length, and even putting a temporary barrier on there converts it to the length of Shatford Way is like 2,600 feet. You cannot create a situation where you don't have emergency access on a snap to get out there, particularly that you don't have, if we
I
have
gotta be
flood-
careful what I say with
flood
this.
across here. From the standpoint, I really think, and our ordinance talks about the connectivity for utility connections, for walking, for other paths between different areas. You know, everyone loves to live on a cul-de-sac. They are the most inefficient things, and they hurt the flow of traffic. Everybody that comes down one has to come back the other way. I think our ordinance is set up to actually encourage, when we can. It's just very difficult to do when you have developments coming decades apart. But getting them connected is an important thing.
So, yeah, so just to be clear, I never said eliminating Downing Way or something, I don't know where that comes from, but I said that I don't think the gate is necessary.
Right.
Because of the
I would agree.
configuration. So I don't know, the selectmen have broad authority to do what they wanna do, but I mean, this board, I don't think there's any reason to gate it, that's all I'm saying. I don't think anybody's gonna use it. I think the people at Coleman Drive, they have no reason to use it, because if you live on Coleman Drive and you're going to Portsmouth, why would you take that left and then take a hard right? It doesn't make sense. For all the people that live on Coleman Drive that like to walk, it's gonna be a great place to walk, but I don't see it. So that's not the rumor, Rick, that actually I was asked that by an abutter.
Okay.
But and that's not your response, that's my response. I mean, I think if the question was actually raised publicly, the board should respond.
See, that's what bothers me. I knew that question was out there, and I
Yeah.
sat there and I looked right at him,
Never said a word.
doesn't say anything.
No,
But
and
John,
I-
and John, this is what bothers me, you gotta, oh, never mind. If he's coming to you and trying to do things behind the scenes and he's in a butter, he has a conflict of interest, he shouldn't be doing that. That's not for the record, please. I just don't think that's correct, that's not your fault.
The other issue that Rick may have heard a rumor about was noise, and this actually has come up before. That the tree cutting and the tree cutting associated with the road construction and the lot development will increase the noise level on Coleman Drive and those areas. I don't see it, but, and we don't have any, there's no regulation or ordinance that deals with it. I think we've all been out there. I mean, it's a heavily forested site. If you remove a quarter of the trees on the lot, I just don't see that noise is gonna be a problem, nor do I see how you'd ever abate it. You know, you're not gonna build a sound wall along the shore.
I agree with you, John, but it was asked by one of the abutters. It is in the record. Jamie put it in there. We will respond to it as an issue, that it's just not manageable and it is not within the ordinance. There are not limits in the ordinance that cannot be exceeded. It's just,
Remember something too, it's a private road until the selectmen accept it, and until the selectmen can accept it until the planning board recommends it, that they accept it, or there's some form of petition to accept it, if the planning board doesn't do it. If the planning board says, we do not recommend, there still can be a petition to do so. But until that is the case, and until a warranty is over, the selectmen will not take it, and that's been our process for years about doing roads, is that we review it, we have controlled it, and then we turn it over to them and make a recommendation to do it. Normally, we turn it over to them after we say, everything's done as we've asked for. So until then, they can't touch it. You know, that's my understanding, that's what we're
As a
doing.
private road, right?
Yes. Until then, because they're going to have a homeowners association to take care of it, and that's gonna be, what, 4 or 5 years down the road. That's what it's gonna wind up being by the time that happens, so. All right.
And our plans don't show it being gated so we're proposing full access, town road.
But what bothers me here a little bit, and this is just my own frustration sensing is, I'm trying to drag these comments out of people that have something to say, but then they don't say it. It doesn't help us. And you can't discuss it, you can't do anything, you can't have good board meetings, and then you don't get things done. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help us. So don't wait to the end and say, oh, by the way, have you thought about this? So that's the part that I don't like. I like to have open meetings, get all the hearings, all
Well,
the comments.
and
out
as
ahead
a
of time.
chairman, I think maybe the next time, we should start the meeting out by saying, we only have a limited number of public hearings, we may only have 1 or 2 left on this application, whatever it may be. If you have something to say, you gotta either provide it in writing or say it right now, because otherwise the opportunity's lost. And I know you said that tonight, but and if there's someone to blame, it's me that I didn't phrase that.
No, it's not your fault, John.
Can we just go quickly through the memo to make sure that you guys are,
Yes,
there's
sir.
nothing that is a problem for you, or that you disagree with, because I'd like to know.
Yes.
So, page 1, mostly just administrative stuff, how you label the plans, how you number them, I want that done differently.
John, the one thing is our revision date's the same on every sheet. We don't have different revisions.
So you don't ever revise one sheet in a drawing?
It's a block and it goes on all sheets.
Okay, that's fine, that's
So
fine.
it stays up to date.
No problem.
So that's fine.
But I do want on the cover sheet, I do want you to label which sheets are gonna be recorded, just so someone knows.
And what do you, we would propose the A sheet.
I don't care what you're, that's just, yeah, whatever it's gonna be the subdivision drawings are what's recorded. All I want you to do is say, these sheets are being recorded. That way,
You're
if
okay,
someone
you're
grabs
okay
it.
with the A sheets being recorded though? Just the A sheets? You don't want anything else
That's
recorded?
fine, yeah, that's fine. Well, we're gonna record the lot line adjustment plans too, so, yeah. The number 5, the crosshairs areas, you just gotta label what those are, you know, I know I don't even know what it is, no cut, no disturb or something like that, but we need to know. Okay?
On the deed restrictions.
Well, you just crosshatch it on the plan, but it doesn't really mean anything to me.
I just think it's labeled on another sheet, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, on on sheet A2, we put all the labels on that one, because that's the one that'll be recorded. We have the arrows and notes pointing to that saying proposed lot 12 deed restricted area, no home construction permitted on both those.
Yeah. but
OV
what about-
sheets,
what
we
about
don't put
cut- what about
labels.
cut- I mean, what other restrictions are there? Are there cutting restrictions?
I mean, these are voluntary restrictions that we're putting on the plan, just to.
So no building?
Yeah, no building, no structure.
No tree cutting, or no? You're not going that far?
I guess
I don't care.
We
I just
didn't think we
wanna-
needed to go that far.
I just wanna know, because it's kind of vague, that's all I'm saying.
Yep,
Tighten
sure.
it up.
Yep.
Just no buildings.
Yep. 6, we're gonna want, conservation land, some sort of placards all along the wetland areas, behind the lots only, you know, just so people know, and I think every 25 feet is reasonable. You guys show a plan from the nice town of Rye showing that you're gonna put them on stakes and mount them on the ground, but we probably don't need them on stakes, and we probably are doing them.
You don't want it to be in Rye?
Well, you can put them in Rye.
You know why we did that? There was cutting in that area.
And John, if I can pick the guy,
No, we're
I
getting
have,
good.
if you could explain what your conservation areas are on lot 10, 11, and 12. I know you've had discussions with a number of people on it, I just don't know what they mean. So, you don't have to do it now.
Well, just voluntarily, sort of self-imposed restrictions on those, sort of just mainly, just to kind of protect the neighboring lot owner, just as a courtesy. So,
I-
we can
and the
spell out
protect-
more of.
And that secondary wetland stream on there. I just had a hard time determining what is the actual lot 10, lot 11, lot 12, and what are the conservation restrictions?
Yep.
Okay. You don't have to explain it now.
Sure.
It's in our next discussion.
Yep,
report.
gotcha.
Maybe change the line weights, Joe, because it is confusing. Let's see here,
What sheet you want, John?
I'm not in, I'm on page 3 of my memo,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that, we talked about this at the last meeting, Rick Stern is not an abutter, so he should remove him from the abutters list. We're gonna wanna see, and Carrie's gonna wanna review your HOA documents to make sure, the odd thing about this subdivision is that you have, not the odd thing, I guess it's sort of typical, you have drainage amenities that are both on private lots and in the right of way, so somehow you gotta make sure you deal with that. 'Cause I'm assuming that we're gonna want you to maintain the bioretention ponds, both in the right of way, I think there's only one in the right of way, down by Downey.
Yep.
We're gonna want you to maintain that, and then you're gonna maintain all the ones that are in easement areas, right, fair enough?
Yeah, typically what we do is we have the homeowners association maintain, with the town having an easement with the right to
Right, to
also
come
maintain
in
if it
if
so
it-
chose to do
Right,
so.
right, okay, so just, I wanna make sure you got that.
Yep.
At the owner's expense. If it's not maintained by the owner, it's gonna be, the town will do it at the owner's expense.
That would be the normal course of action,
I just wanna make sure that we understand that, because that's what we've typically done, yeah.
The HOA's
Expense.
expense,
Yeah.
not the homeowner.
Well, the HOA is probably not gonna be there forever, am I correct? It can get dissolved.
No, it'll have to be there perpetually, because they're gonna have maintenance responsibilities for the drainage,
Sure.
landscaping, probably ornamental lighting, I don't think you do you?
I don't think
Not within the right of way.
Okay.
And probably, so
Well-
therefore it'd be private
Yeah.
on each individual lot, but you can put a provision in the HOA documents on things that they have to maintain, that they can't dissolve
And you
due to
can
those
show any
things.
entrance landscaping or signage, I don't know if you're gonna do that, but, that should be shown on the plan, and if there's anything out there that you need to maintain, then that should be dealt with too.
Sure. We'll
And
get it,
that's
we'll get it.
all, and then the big thing is you have a pretty nice landscaping plan. And I know there's language in there about guaranteeing the landscape, the tree materials, but I think there ought to be some sort, I don't know if there should be temporary irrigation or something, but there's a lot, you guys, that's a pretty aggressive planting plan. So I don't know how, I just think, hey, like, heck, if you could respond to this in advance of the 23rd and Eric's, then that would be very helpful, so.
Can I make a comment? Item number 24,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's where the applicant will provide a letter from the Newington Fire Department and Police Department. John, I've been fighting real hard, and I think I finally got them on board that they have to work through us, through you, not through the applicant, because a lot of times what's been happening, we've had applicants go to them, they present one thing to us, but what they present to them is different. And so we'd like that to be a part of the process.
Okay.
So I want that to go through you, and want to make sure that they at least attend the meeting or know about what's going on before they write a letter.
Okay.
But I don't want it coming from them, going over there, hey, you didn't sign this, can't you just sign this letter? And that's what's happened. So we've got to do it correctly.
With regard to the city of Portsmouth, that's a different thing. Portsmouth what?
Oh,
No,
yeah.
It's only, it's fire and police that you want
Yeah.
me involved.
Yeah, we're working with Portsmouth Water now to get a letter
So,
to serve and all
There
that.
is another thing that we've done, and we hadn't had any applications in quite some time. We want to make sure that the electrical plan, which I haven't seen, some kind of electrical plan where the transformers are going, pad mounted transformers, where the telephone pedestals are
Yep.
going. I haven't looked deep enough, are you gonna have, for example, it's supposed to be a loop system for the electrical, so if one fails, you have another one to back it up, so it can fail anywhere along the, and we're called for it in our regulations, construction design. Just wanna make sure all of that's covered. Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
Where you put the electrical, where you cross a road, and you have several conduit together, or two of them, you have to have it with flowable fill, to make sure, because otherwise, if you don't use flowable fill, you know what happens? The road starts competing in over a period of time, and it goes on for years. So, I just wanna make sure we get all those things covered.
we've reached out to Unitil for the gas,
Yep.
gas plans, and we'll get the utility plan for power as well. And they're gonna dictate where everything goes and, what pipe is used, what conduit is used under the roads.
But I think what Dennis is saying is that Eversource, isn't gonna require a loop system, but the town does.
I think
That's-
Eversource does require.
Oh, they are gonna require,
No, they won't.
I don't
They
think.
just told me recently they're not.
What they need-
us on Fabian. No, because we required it, and they didn't wanna do it.
No, they did, because they said that we had to provide a way to get three-phase power at the end. So we had to put a vault.
All I know is as long as we have a plan, you understand you have to have a loop system, and
I'm
you show
assuming
that to us, demonstrate
I'm
that.
assuming our loop is going to be a little bit different than what you're thinking. We're probably gonna go out to the cul-de-sac, come back out Downing to loop to Holman, I'm guessing. But I guess that's the question we're gonna have to talk to Eversource about.
It may be easier to run, so we ran a 5-inch line that's empty, and we could only run it 1,000 feet. So we had to run it to a pulling station, which was a big ball, and then it just continued, and we did a riser at each end. And that was it. So it's just it's not a circuit, it's just a straight line
Sure. Yeah.
from pole to pole.
Yep.
But you also have to run it to the transformer, pad mounted transformers in between.
Correct, yeah.
A lot of times what they'll do is they'll daisy chain those, but you can feed it either way, from either side, you can break it anywhere in the middle, and you can still have each house on line.
It's like Christmas lights,
Yeah.
but they don't work, they always burn out.
But I would like to see a plan to that, because we asked for it, and that's one of the, part of the, are you doing any street lighting? Because there was a note in there about street lighting.
Yeah, if we are, we're probably gonna take street lighting off the plan unless that's a requirement. We'll probably take the lights off.
Okay.
I think that the note talks about street lighting will be out of the right of way.
Yeah, it was on the right of way, right on the edge.
No, it's.
Oh,
we
no, I'm
don't-
sorry, I was planting, I'm sorry.
Right, we don't have any street lighting, but if they do add street lighting, the note's on there to say it can't be in the right of way, it has to be on private.
None are proposed at this time.
Okay. Anyone else before we call? Because we've been talking about this for a good long time. And so we're going to continue the hearing to when, John?
August 23rd.
August
And you're
23rd. In
gonna set
the
up a
meantime,
meeting
you're going to work with Eric and
You're gonna
John.
try to set up a meeting for Eric on Thursday morning,
morning.
10:30, 11? All right.
Sure.
Not to be stickler, but technically should do the time and the place.
6 o'clock on the 23rd.
You are being
Right
sick.
here.
You are being sick. You're gonna keep me out of trouble. I know you are.
I always fill in that on the minutes.
I'm the one that hired you.
I
That's it, let's move on to the next.
Oh, we're done. Does someone make a motion to continue to the 23rd? At 6
I'll make a
o'clock,
motion
right here?
to continue to 6 o'clock on the 23rd.
You can sit here.
John,
Oh, I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
want her yelling at me.
no, she said I always do that, all right. She does too. I'm right for once tonight.
Let the record show also before I leave that I did receive John's technical memorandum number 2 previously. I didn't see it in my emails, but I just looked and it is there.
All right, good.
Don't worry, I
I
was just.
apologize.
He sent you the junk. He sent you the junk.
Okay,
Straight to
so
spam.
time and place is gonna be here, 6 PM on the 25th of August. So moved, here we go. All right, good. Let's take a quick break, quick, because we've been sitting here for 3 hours. I wanna then get on to, like, less than 5 minutes, talk about it.
All right.
I was cracking up in your line.
Yes, beat us down since we're down 3 hours.
You know,
Oh, yes, beat me.
I have stored them out.
Did you get one to Joe? This is great.
Rick, can I interest you in office engineering scale?
No, I already have one.
He's an office.
Yeah, we just, we got the nitro.
All right, here we go. We're out of here.
Chris, I know you already have one.
Yeah.
I stole there to deliver some to you.
Can you put one in Joe's? All right, we're gonna work on it.
He hasn't bought these in 20 years, so he said he found these for
John,
Joe's missing the exact same.
John, could I have one of those?
Yes.
Well, you're talking direct, so.
Yeah, I'll take one, since you have a whole bunch of them, I just have one.
No. I extorted them out of time engineers. Oh, really? That's just the cover. It looks like a You put a very strong elastic. I've got one.
Yes, John. John,
Scale from office engineering.
thank you. With the rest of the town.
Oh, absolutely, just ask Joe. The problem is that John's the one is the reason somebody that, because I don't know, she's part time. So here's how you do it. Are you looking for the?
How difficulty is figuring out how to get it done,
These here.
Yeah.
but not all around town. Yes. That's where we need another board. So,
Cause I don't
So
know.
the front is
what
good.
the dots in there and all that.
I got it.
There's more out there.
But US and all that. Okay, but it's Eleanor. It is just real wide. And I would.
Every homeowner in town now.
So don't go first.
I will be. I would move that.
Like, here's my thought.
Hold on. Yeah, you could.
I mean, I think
From here to. I don't see why you couldn't raise it. Because then you're less than that.
That's her job.
And then you
She's
come
the one that
this
goes
one
wrong.
here, and you
So
come
like
all
I
the way
said,
down to this
it's
one.
not until like the 23rd.
Right, because that gives you two. You're looking at
I think part of the fact that there is, like, in the beginning, you know, the culvert here, right now, all this drainage comes down here.
Also looking for stone
So much drainage you need the capital staircase.
They were replaced.
Good.
And that was part of this.
Yeah.
That's why they got.
They got
They're all set for 5 years.
All right. So we're ahead of the curve. People are.
I remember.
And the voice doesn't get it.
like told
And
them
then
to do.
instead of having another slope coming up, you could ease that slope.
The big thing is, we're not an MS four.
Yeah, but you're only talking about 5 feet.
We
But you have less work.
That cuts easy because it's on one
When
side.
ran out, I said, "Tell me what to do."
You're talking a couple hundred yards of fill.
Yeah.
Grand scheme of things, not that much.
I know what this
The
is.
problem is, they don't know.
Is this your iPad? We can do one person. Is this your iPad?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, definitely old school.
Somebody needs to get a little dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frontage is not an issue, they have.
Also, I was saying, if you raise that from the rail, you could lessen the
I'm
house
taking-
slope.
So where did you, I thought we said,
I think confusing charge basis.
Apply that way, we have 50% front lines.
we got a lot over here.
Boy, it's not drinking. You know,
We used to have the word or one road.
Right.
I'm not even sure we're gonna get anything.
I made it work for a reason.
They can have mine.
The version I have is not.
Really? And it goes right in. Do you have a, you have a road? Yeah. Or under the ground.
That should have changed this year, so it says, leave
So all those leaves are.
That should have changed this year. It did not.
But if it helps you out, it may.
Still over.
Frontage check.
So
What's weird is that, one side of that road's in Cotton Hill, that's
Building frontage.
right, that small distance.
Right.
So I don't, but I was for that.
That's really sides are full.
Now, frontage.
Yeah, if we raise the road up, we'll be filling it more.
Eventually it's gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta have more, think about public work. So we gotta have some
Buildings that have.
I wouldn't even say that.
Yeah,
I'm talking, you know, like something.
Yeah, I had my dinner. Like Whistler. You turned me on to it.
I would.
On the chart, the chart, I'm gonna see if I can- we may have changed it, I don't think we did, but I haven't looked at it in a long time, so. It's just got like, we talked about having computers.
I'll show you where.
Hey, did you skip
Okay,
it?
remember that, remember we added the word contiguous, cause right here in
No,
Hannah
you have
Lane.
it, it's just, it's a plain, it's a.
They didn't have the
you
frontage
it.
on Hannah Lane, but they had it around the line, around the corner.
Yeah,
Oh, you
but
just
that-
need zoning
But that has nothing to do with setback.
I know that. I was talking about
To it, but I
contiguous
don't.
frontage.
You can have
To.
frontage on two roads.
Solve that.
Didn't we talk about that a couple weeks ago?
Look at, you know, they got.
We did, right?
We're looking at driveway, driveway.
They weren't getting what they assumed that they had automatic setback. Side yard, not.
All right, we're gonna skip over a couple of things here, we're gonna go right to the, minutes for the meeting. And there's one thing that I had, I don't know if anyone has anything, anyone have anything to
This
say?
is July 12th, right?
Yeah.
No.
Anyone have anything?
Who's not here?
Being that no one else has jumped out, I'm gonna say, so Gene, line 169, do you have the drawings in front of you? I mean, no, okay.
Hold on, let me catch up.
I had on the chair, he just said as a result, it would be cost prohibitive to do renovate the building, so perhaps the only thing that could be done was to tear it down. And I said, or use the facade of the building to put on to the back of the building, you know, as like a face, but I
So
did,
add or use the facade?
yeah. And then on the very next line, it says Chair Hewitt could make a recommendation to tear down and rebuild.
Oh, that's redundant, isn't
That's,
it?
yeah, that's on line 172, just take that out.
Yep.
But I was looking at, I made an example at the Navy Yard, they weren't allowed to tear down the building, but they had to keep they were allowed to tear down the building, but they had to keep the facade of it, so it had some kind of historical value, I remember that, but that didn't make the minutes, it doesn't need to be. I don't want people thinking I'm out there recommending
rip
to
it
tear
down.
down the old historical
Burn it.
buildings, you know, so. Anyone else? There being nothing else,
motion that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed. Jane, one more thing that I missed. It only matters because I wanna make sure it's correct.
No problem.
Line 60. I think I said Mr. Krebs agreed that the onus was on the applicants, not oneness. I just wanna make sure. And
I'm so sorry, my
I don't know how to
misspelling. No,
spell
you're
onus.
right, of course you did.
I would've spelled it that way.
Well,
It's not spelled right.
No, it's good.
okay, so that's.
I know it's not, it's
that's
not.
it. Thank you.
Anyway, I'm not against the school, you know, it's just how do we try to build something within the parameters we have? All right, that being the case, I'm going to,
That's approved.
Well, so I wanted to do two things. Can I just talk for a minute?
yeah, go ahead.
So we've been asked to meet with the EDC, so I was hoping that we could come up with a date to meet with them. And, item number 2 on the agenda is from 8 to 8:30, the CIP discussion, it's now 9 o'clock. I'm hoping that the planning board says, let's have a meeting on the second Monday of August, we could just do this and that and only this. Would that be okay?
So moved.
Well,
Well,
okay.
I hope everybody.
I just think it's, you're not in the right frame of mind right now to deal with that. Is that agreeable to everybody?
I'm okay with it.
Yes.
That's on the ninth.
Nice, yeah. And then going back to EDC,
John, could you put a message out to everybody, because not everyone's here tonight?
yes,
All right.
I will. With regard to the EDC, we've been asked by the EDC to meet with them. They wanted to meet, to Ted Connors, who's I think the Board of Selectmen's representative to the EDC, wanted to do it as soon as possible. And I don't know what your availability is to do that, so.
I thought the board last month said September, that's what I remembered.
Right, I
That's
put
what
it
the
in
minutes
minutes, because that's what you said, but
Yeah.
is the only thing we're talking about a capital improvements program on the 9th?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think we should get into the other issues at that date. So that's August 9th. I'm talking about September, that's what the board, I thought, said. And what I also understood was, they understand we're very busy with 2 subdivisions right now. At least one is very active, the other one's coming in, that we're kind of busy to be doing a lot. So I recommend that we move it off to probably September. I don't know, whatever you recommend.